Chapter 26. Slytherin took Transfiguration class with Gryffindor. The Gryffindors hadn't arrived yet. When Erwin walked into the classroom, the first thing he saw was the gray-haired and black-striped tabby cat lying on the podium. There are also lines like these square glasses around the tabby cat's eyes. Erwin suppressed his desire to play with the cat. Erwin wouldn't admit that he didn't dare. Erwin walked to the front of the podium. He bowed lightly to Professor McGonagall on the table. Then, he turned around and returned to his seat. Time passed gradually. Gryffindor students also came to the classroom one after another. The correction power of the plot is really strong, just like now. Erwin really couldn't understand. In the morning, he had already seen Harry Potter and Ron appearing in the auditorium. Why are two people still late? Erwin looked at the two men who were glad that Professor McGonagall had not arrived and planned to sneak to their seats. I couldn't help but shake my head. Sure enough, Professor McGonagall would always succeed in pretending. The next moment, in the surprised eyes of all the little wizards, Professor McGonagall jumped down from the podium. The moment he jumped down, he transformed into a human form. Ron couldn't help but exclaimed, "It's so wonderful." Professor McGonagall said coldly, "Thank you, Mr. Weasley. I think I should turn you two into clocks, so that you two can have some sense of time." Harry Potter quickly explained, "We are lost. Those stairs." Harry Potter hadn't finished speaking yet. Professor McGonagall said, "Then I should turn one of you into a map or a compass, so that you can find the way." Professor McGonagall doesn't care who the other party is. Even if it's Harry Potter, she won't give him face. If she makes a mistake, she will say that this person is really evil. Anyway, when it comes to Hogwarts, the professor that Erwin finds most terrifying is Professor McGonagall. Professor McGonagall really has no personal feelings whatsoever. Harry Potter and Ron didn't dare to talk nonsense. He quickly returned to his seat and sat down. Then, Professor McGonagall looked at Erwin. "So, Mr. Cavendi, how did you recognize me just now?" Erwin stood up and said, "As a professor of Hogwarts and the head of Gryffindor. Professor McGonagall has a great reputation. Therefore, your registered animagus is also among your information. As your student, I have naturally seen it. Moreover, the stripes next to your animagus eyes are the same as your wise glasses." Professor McGonagall smiled and said, "Very good. 5 points for Slytherin, for your erudition and for your praise." Erwin bowed slightly. "Thank you, Professor." Erwin just sat down in the next moment. The system beep sounded suddenly in my mind. Ding. Congratulations to the host for winning 5 points for Slytherin, which has now been converted into a balance of 50 reputation points in proportion. Erwin was stunned. Then his eyes suddenly lit up. He seems to have discovered Huadian. Can the extra points from Hogwarts be used as reputation points? And it's still 1 to 10? If that's the case. Erwin raised the corners of his mouth. "Wizards of Hogwarts, come and meet the Scroll King under Chinese education." Professor McGonagall turned and walked onto the stage. While walking, he said, "Before starting today's class, I have a few words to say. Transfiguration is the most dangerous and complex subject that you are exposed to at Hogwarts. The mystery of transfiguration. Some people will never die. I will never be able to understand it in my life. So, if anyone dares to be naughty in my class, I think you know the consequences." While talking, Professor McGonagall came to the front of the podium. The wand in hand is pointed at the podium. The next moment, the podium turned into a pig that kept flapping its big ears. This move shocked all the little wizards. Erwin's eyes also lit up. He looked at the pig sniffing back and forth on the ground with great interest. Erwin had actually always been curious. What exactly is the principle of transfiguration? He can turn dead things into living things, and living things can also have the habits of living things. The last time Erwin saw someone who could do this, that person was named Sun Goku. Professor McGonagall looked at the shocked eyes of the young wizards. Very satisfied. After all, isn't it just for this moment to appear holy in front of people? Professor McGonagall tapped her wand again. "Restore it to its original state." The next moment, the pig turned back into the table again. Professor McGonagall said, "Okay, I have demonstrated it to you. Then, remember the spell of transfiguration?" Transfiguration. The spell for transfiguration was not found. This thing seems to have no spell. Just use the English word for transfiguration. As for the counter spell, you don't need to know about it yet. Now, look at the match in front of you. There is only one goal in this lesson, to turn it into a silver needle. If there are no problems, you can start. A group of little wizards are gearing up and preparing for hands-on experiments. However, Erwin raised his hand. Professor McGonagall turned to look. What's the matter, Mr. Cavendi? What's the problem? Erwin said, That's it, Professor McGonagall. I have a question that has been bothering me when I was reading before school started. Can you help me solve it? Professor McGonagall nodded. Tell me. All the little wizards also stopped what they were doing, looking at Erwin curiously. Erwin sorted out his language and said, That's it, Professor McGonagall. I've always been curious about a question. That is, for example, you just turn the table into a pig. It's amazing and exquisite. But what if, here on a pig, apply the transformation spell again and turn it into a table? So, is it now subject to a double transformation spell? Or is it already a counter spell? Erwin finished his question, looking at Professor McGonagall expectantly. He really wanted to know this question, which seemed like a matryoshka doll. Professor McGonagall was also a little confused. She didn't expect Erwin to ask such an outrageous question. This seems to be a logical problem, but in fact, it is indeed a transfiguration problem. Professor McGonagall thought for a moment and said, According to the rules of transfiguration, you cannot cast transfiguration twice on the same item. Erwin shook his head. That's not right. Professor, if that's the case. As he spoke, Erwin took out his wand. To the match in front of you. Transfiguration. The next moment, the match changed shape, and the wood turned into metal. Professor McGonagall's eyes lit up. It's a beautiful transfiguration technique. Although it's still a little green, you can win 5 points for your college. Erwin bowed. Thank you, Professor. But what I want to express is that I have cast the transformation spell now. But this silver needle did not achieve the result I wanted most. Then I will cast the transformation spell on it again. This time it's allowed, right? After all, we haven't mastered the counter spell, so we need to cast the spell again and again to make the silver needle change into the shape we want. Chapter 27. Professor McGonagall looked thoughtful. Erwin felt as if he had been exposed to a very interesting problem. He liked this kind of matryoshka doll-like problem very much, and he didn't know why. Anyway, Erwin was particularly interested in this kind of problem that seemed like an endless loop. Erwin then asked, So, according to this statement, I cast the transformation spell 5 times on a match, and then it turned into what I wanted. As he spoke, Erwin waved his wand again, and the appearance of the match gradually changed. Eventually, it turned into an embroidery needle that shone with silver light and had beautiful patterns on it. Erwin said, So, have I used the transformation technique several times to superimpose the ability of the transformation technique? Or have I gradually become more proficient in the transformation technique? From the beginning of half transformation to the last time I cast it, I have been able to perfect it. Have you changed the style of this match? Professor McGonagall thought for a moment. Mr. Cavendi, I really haven't thought about this question. However, I think it is a very interesting idea. As he spoke, Professor McGonagall flicked her wand. A transformation spell was applied to the silver needle. The next moment, the silver needle was transformed into the shape of a match. Erwin said, Yes, that's what you mean, Professor McGonagall. I cast the transformation spell on a match 5 times. Then, you cast the transformation spell again. That's 6 times. However, there is nothing wrong with it. It looks like, explain, the transformation spell can be applied multiple times. Similarly, your transformation spell changed it back to the shape of a match. So now, has it returned to its original form, or is it just a transformation? What about the product of transfiguration? If it returns to its original form, does that mean that transfiguration itself is a kind of magic with its own spells and counterspells? Erwin's eyes had lit up. He finally discovered the joy of magic. This is simply a paradox. This is so much fun too. Professor McGonagall also became interested. To be honest, Erwin's strange brain circuit has never appeared at Hogwarts. In other words, I have never seen it in the entire magical world. Therefore, no one has ever considered this issue. Today, Erwin raised this question. Professor McGonagall crossed her arms over her chest. She had forgotten that class was taking place at this time. She was really thinking about Erwin's question now, and all the little wizards were shocked. This is 1st grade? You call this 1st grade? I feel like I've come to the wrong place. Why can he discuss issues with the professor there in the 1st grade? And the issue seems to be very profound. So, do you understand what Erwin said? Words? What words? Did Erwin speak? I don't understand. I don't understand at all. I now recognize that he is really a perfect Slytherin, from a Muggle family. I can't believe a word of it. How could he be from a Muggle family at this level? Yes. I suspect that he is the kind of heir secretly cultivated by a big family. Huh, that's an interesting statement. Haven't you read the novel? What's that? The little wizards were successfully led off the rhythm. Harry Potter was also stunned at this time. Looking at Erwin, he muttered to himself, "Is this a real wizard? I can't understand a word he said." Then Harry Potter looked at Ron, who was standing aside. "I plan to ask my good friend if he understands." After all, Ron is a child of a wizard family. However, looking back, Ron looked like a demented child. Open mouth and stare. Obviously didn't understand a word. Harry Potter shook his head helplessly. He was already thinking about whether his friend really made a mistake. Erwin said, "Professor McGonagall, can you try a restoration spell?" Professor McGonagall woke up from a dream. "Yes, you are right." Then Professor McGonagall tapped her wand lightly. However, the match did not change at all. Professor McGonagall frowned. Erwin also seemed to have discovered a new world. Professor McGonagall is a master of transfiguration, so he is naturally good at using counterspells. There is no possibility of release failure. Now the match has not changed at all. It can only explain one truth. What Erwin said might be true. Transfiguration is indeed a spell that combines a curse and a counter-curse. Professor McGonagall exclaimed, "Mr. Cavendi, I think you have discovered something amazing. If your verification can come true, believe me, you will get benefits you can't imagine." Erwin said, "Professor, you are wrong." Professor McGonagall looked at Erwin in confusion. Erwin said, "I discovered this under your guidance." Professor McGonagall had a smile on her face. At this moment, the bell rang for the end of Get Out of Class. Only then did Professor McGonagall react. She is still in class, watching the other little wizards start chatting one by one. Professor McGonagall sighed helplessly. The gap, this is the gap. There is no harm without contrast. Compared with Erwin, these little wizards are really inferior. Professor McGonagall said, "Okay, Get Out of Class is over. If you want to practice when you go back, remember to bring your seniors with you and ask them to help you with tutoring. Private practice is prohibited." All the little wizards nodded quickly. Practicing in private? Impossible. They all complained when they were forced to practice, let alone practice in private. Professor McGonagall looked at these little wizards and knew that they would not practice in private. That's fine. At least there's no danger. What an easy student to teach. It's so easy. The little wizards dispersed one after another. Professor McGonagall looked at Erwin. "Well, Erwin, I'm going to go to Professor Dumbledore now. I feel that you are very interested in transfiguration, and you also have a talent. If you are willing, after your class is over today, you can come to my office. Then we can discuss the question you just raised." Erwin's eyes lit up. This is a good opportunity. The professor started a small stove. This is not an experience that ordinary people can have. Erwin said quickly, "Of course I am willing. If it won't disturb you, I will definitely go." Professor McGonagall smiled and said, "Don't worry, kid. You won't disturb me. I'm looking forward to your arrival." Erwin nodded quickly. Professor McGonagall said, "Oh, by the way, next, you seem to have a potions class. Come over quickly, it's almost time." Only then did Erwin react. Broken. He forgot about it. If he is late for the old bats class. Thinking of Snape's face, Erwin couldn't help but swallow. Chapter 28. He felt like he might die today. For the first time, Erwin lost his bearings for the first time since his birth. "Speak to Professor McGonagall." Erwin turned around and ran out of the classroom. The potions classroom is on the first floor. The transfiguration classroom is on the 7th floor. Erwin was very anxious. Look at the long staircase. He looked at the time again. Erwin felt that he had to be a naughty kid for once. Erwin took out his wand and pointed at the stairs. "Give me a way to the potions classroom. Hurry up." The next moment, the stairs began to change. A straight passage appears. Erwin jumped up and sat down on the armrest. With a swipe, he drew directly. Extremely fast. The portraits on the wall were stunned. "Oh my God, what are you doing?" Merlin's beard. "This little wizard is too brave. But I always find it so fun. Can you find a painter to draw a flight of stairs for me? I want to try it too." Erwin rolled his eyes. Try your uncle." As the speed gets faster and faster, the ground is close at hand. Some timid portraits have covered their eyes and dare not look at them. Erwin knows that if according to this angle, he specified that he landed face first. Of course Erwin wouldn't let that happen. I saw Erwin snap his fingers. The next moment, Erwin's body flew directly into the air. A purple lotus flower was left in place. Erwin turned into a plume of purple smoke and fell to the ground. Erwin had a smile on his face. Although Hogwarts doesn't allow apparition, in other words, only those registered in Hogwarts can use apparition, such as Dumbledore. However, apparition's extended flight is available. Sirius said, Hogwarts can't apparate, but it can fly. In the Deathly Hallows, when the Death Eaters attack Hogwarts, they fly over in a black ball. After Erwin landed, he ran towards the potions classroom without stopping. He didn't notice. In a classroom on the second floor, several Ravenclaw seniors just walked out of the classroom. Among them is Zhang Qiu. Zhang Qiu looked at the purple lotus that was slowly dissipating. His eyes were full of surprise. The classmates around me exclaimed, "What is that? Is it magic? It's so beautiful. Is that Erwin? What kind of magic is this? Why haven't we learned it?" Zhang Qiu said nothing. The purple lotus was remembered in her heart. On the other side, Erwin hurried to the potions classroom. However, he was still late. Push open the door. All the little wizards turned to look. Snape's brow furrowed. Look towards the door. Erwin said quickly, "Sorry, Professor. I'm late." Erwin felt uneasy. "Old bat, it's so scary." However, what puzzled Erwin was, Snape's brows quickly widened. "Come in. Pay attention next time." Erwin was a little confused. He passed the test so easily? Erwin has begun to wonder if his last name is Snape instead of Calvin. Erwin Snape? It sounds pretty good too. The other little wizards were also confused. As long as Erwin was a little late, they had already seen Snape's terror. That gloomy face is like eternal ice. It makes people feel cold all over. In the corner, Ron was a little angry. Why is Snape so partial to Erwin? Harry Potter was writing on the paper and said casually, "Maybe it's because Snape is the head of Slytherin, and Erwin is the hidden prefect of Slytherin." Ron said, "But Professor McGonagall is also very good to him." Harry Potter put down his quill. He blew on the ink that had not yet dried on the paper in front of him. Maybe it's because Erwin is so good. Just when Ron was still about to speak, an angry shout came, and the next moment a black shadow floated in front of the two people. That's right, it's floating. Erwin was stunned. He even lowered his head to see if Snape had stepped on a balancing car that had not yet been invented in this era. How is this floating done? Snape looked at the two of them condescendingly. "Ron Weasley and our savior Harry Potter, what are you talking about?" The cold voice made the two of them tremble. The two stood up quickly. Ron stammered, We didn't talk about anything?" Snape sneered. "Oh, do you mean I heard it wrong? Tell me, did you?" Ron was about to cry. Dare not say a word. The whole person started to tremble. Harry Potter on the side bravely said, "Professor, we are talking about Erwin." Erwin, who was eating the melon, didn't expect that the melon landed on him. Chat about him? Tricky people. Want to harm me? Snape turned his head sharply and stared at Harry Potter. When he met Harry's green eyes, Snape's eyes became much softer, and a trace of recollection flashed in his eyes. However, as his gaze stretched, Harry Potter's face fell into Snape's eyes. A look of disgust that could not be concealed suddenly appeared on Snape's face. "Oh, it seems that you have mastered the knowledge you need to master. So, you have time to talk about other things. Then our celebrity, Harry Potter. Tell me, if I add Narcissus bulb powder to absinthe stem liquid, what will happen?" Harry Potter was stunned. What kind of powder? What kind of liquid? What the hell is that? Why add powder to liquid? Harry Potter had no choice but to shake his head. Snape had a sarcastic smile on his face. "Oh, I don't know. Then I'll ask you something else. Mr. Potter, if I need a piece of bezoar, where should I find it?" Harry Potter still shook his head. The sarcasm on Snape's face deepened. "So, last question. What is the difference between aconite and burdock?" Harry Potter still shook his head. "I don't know, Professor," Snape said coldly. "It seems fame does not represent everything, especially fame that does not match oneself. So, what gives you the courage to not listen to my lessons seriously?" Malfoy's face was almost twitching with laughter. Erwin shook his head. The life of falling in love and killing each other has just begun. Such poor Harry Potter. Ron saw his best friend's embarrassment. Finally, he mustered up the courage to say, "Professor, I think you are making things difficult for Potter. We have never learned this knowledge. How could Potter know?" Snape turned his head sharply. 5 points from Gryffindor for your nonsense. Erwin, tell them the answer." Erwin had no choice but to stand up. "Add Narcissus bulb powder to absinthe stem, liquid to get the water of life and death, and bezoar must be found in the stomach of the cow. As for aconite and burdock, there is no difference. They are both names for aconite. Erwin said and sat down. Snape said, "Very good. It seems that there are still students who are willing to preview. After all, there are still few idiots. 10 points for Slytherin. Why don't you write it down?" Chapter 29. Snape's venom continued. Snape glanced sideways at Harry Potter. Some people are so complacent because of their reputation that they don't need to attend classes. What a ridiculous behavior. Erwin marveled at Snape's fighting prowess. What a sinful James Potter. What is owed always needs to be repaid. Just like now. Harry Potter's face turned dark, but he didn't dare to refute, especially when he noticed the joking looks from the people around him. Harry Potter, who already had low self-esteem, lowered his head even more. Fortunately, there may be no response from Harry Potter. Snape didn't find it funny anymore. Finally let him go. Floated back to the podium. Get ready to start teaching. Erwin also took out his book and learned about potions. Erwin was very interested. Potions are equated with wealth in the wizarding world. In Erwin's opinion, there are two wealthy people in Hogwarts. The first one, Snape. The potions master, not to mention the potions he sells, said that every year many people pay a lot of money to ask Snape to help brew potions, which is a huge fortune. Secondly, the second one is Hagrid. Hagrid is the warden of the Forbidden Forest. No one can tell how many magical creatures there are in the Forbidden Forest of Hogwarts. Hagrid goes for a walk every day and picks up some things, which are hard to find items outside. Unlike Transfiguration, the first lesson on potions is all theoretical knowledge. After all, if you want to successfully brew a potion, you don't just need to simply throw the ingredients in and simmer it until it takes shape. It requires a lot of theoretical knowledge support. Heat, etc. all need to be considered. It can be said that every potion master is a true academic master, and Snape was the best among them. Of course, Snape did not miss this good opportunity. After one class, the attribute of poisonous tongue was brought into full play. Harry Potter became the child who was loved by the teacher in class and would be called out by Snape to ask questions from time to time. Otherwise, Harry Potter himself is not up to par. He can't even do what he said in the past. He didn't listen at all, so it's no wonder that Snape found the opportunity. The exact opposite is Erwin. Harry Potter couldn't answer, so Snape asked Erwin. During one class, the little wizards almost formed a loop in their minds. 5 points deducted from Gryffindor and 5 points added to Slytherin. This actually made Erwin happy. In just one class, the old bat scored an outrageous 30 points. This use of power for personal gain should not be too obvious. Of course, this has nothing to do with Erwin. Erwin is very satisfied with this rhythm. Anyway, he made money. Finally, with the Gryffindor little wizards miserable and the Slytherin little wizards overjoyed, the potions class was finally over. Snape had just finished class. Gryffindor's little wizards were like dogs chasing after them. He ran out of the classroom as if running away. The little Slytherin wizard couldn't be happier. They also left one after another. After there is no one in the classroom, Erwin came to the podium. Snape was packing his things. I saw Erwin coming over. Asked, "Erwin, do you have anything else to do?" Erwin said, "That's right. I think it's necessary to explain to you why I'm late." Snape said, "Professor McGonagall has told me. You are very talented in Transfiguration and have discovered amazing things." Erwin was shocked. Did Professor McGonagall tell him? When? "Hey guys, you actually have a private chat?" Joining the crowd? Erwin said, "Thank you for your compliment, Professor." Snape waved his hand. "If you have nothing to do, go to the auditorium. You have classes in the afternoon." Erwin hesitated for a moment, thinking about Snape's attitude towards him. Erwin said tentatively, "Professor, I am very interested in potions. If there is anything I don't understand, can I disturb you?" Snape's movements on his hands paused. Erwin felt a little uneasy. Potions is related to Erwin's future plans. If he could get Snape's guidance, it would be a great opportunity for Erwin. Regardless of Snape as a person, Snape can be called a true master when it comes to potions. Just then, Snape put away his things. Said, "Dragon blood." Erwin was stunned for a moment. "What?" "Sorry, Professor, I didn't understand." Snape said, "My office password, Dragon's blood. Come here after dinner. You can help me with some simple potions." After saying that, Snape turned and left. Erwin looked happy. "Tutors, here you go." Erwin also packed his things and whistled to go have lunch. In just one morning, Erwin gained 2 tutors. This is simply great news. After arriving in the auditorium, Erwin sat next to the Slytherin table and started to show off his food. Erwin misses home a little. Because he was not used to British food, Erwin hired 2 Chinese cooks. Erwin felt that he should take time to communicate with those elves. See if they can learn Chinese food. Erwin really wanted to eat Maoxuang. After eating and drinking enough, Erwin rubbed his belly. After eating and drinking, of course I have to find some programs to keep myself active. Why don't you start the prefect challenge today? Erwin turned his head and looked at the second-year camp on the long table. Barton Drew, the hidden prefect of the 2nd grade, was chatting with his classmates. Suddenly I felt a chill on my back. He turned around and met Erwin's eyes. Barton's heart skipped a beat. Isn't this guy planning to challenge directly now? Erwin stood up. Come to Barton. Hello, senior. The hidden prefect of the 1st grade, Erwin Cavendi. I challenge you to become a prefect. Barton had a wry smile on his face. Really? Things about Erwin spread quickly, whether it was the pure disarming spell on the train. It was the same cleansing spell that was cast silently on the Sorting Hat yesterday. Or last night, Erwin's weird magic rioted. Everything adds color to Erwin's legend. Barton was only in his 2nd year, and facing Erwin, he really felt a little confused. But this is the rule, and he can't back down. Stand up. He bowed. I accept your challenge. The movement on the Slytherin table also attracted the attention of students from other houses. For the little wizard, this kind of thing is simply a huge excitement. After all, they usually don't have any special entertainment activities. On the high platform, the eyes of some professors were also attracted. Professor McGonagall frowned and said, I have long said that the Slytherin rule should be abolished. It is too dangerous. Snape said nothing. Dumbledore smiled and said, This is the vitality that young wizards should have, isn't it? Slytherin is different. Let's go and see the fun. Chapter 30. Even if Dumbledore didn't say anything, Snape still had to go. After all, this is a challenge in the arena, and the attacks between young wizards are not serious. So Snape, as the dean, needs to keep an eye on him. By the Black Lake, a lot of little wizards have gathered here. Snape and several professors stood aside and watched. Grodya turned around and glanced at his dean. Snape nodded. Grodya came to the center. Slytherin, Prefect Challenge, Challenger Erwin Cavendi. Erwin walked out of the crowd and stood on Grodya's left side. Grodya nodded. Then he continued. The person being challenged is the hidden prefect of the 2nd grade, Barton Drew. Patton came to Grodya's right side. Shouted a group of 2nd-year students. Come on, Barton. Yes. Don't let Cavendi kill you easily. Ha 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 ha. Barton's originally dark face became even darker. The fight hasn't even started yet, but these people have already decided that he lost? Barton felt extremely bad. He felt he needed to prove himself. You have to survive at least 2 moves. That's right. In fact, he didn't think he had any hope of winning. Grodya waved to the 2 of them. The 2 came to the central position. The wand has been taken out. Grodya took 2 steps back. Erwin and Barton raised their wands on their chests and saluted each other. Then, the 2 turned around and retreated to a certain safe distance. Erwin turned around and walked back. There is always an image lingering in my mind. Inside Tom and Jerry. Tom and Jerry duel according to the rules of the Western Cowboys. However, when walking back, Tom was not a martial artist. Follow Jerry with a gun. That scene was very funny. Erwin didn't know why, but he just thought of this. After the 2 of them arrived at the right location, turn around and face the other person. The next moment, Patton shouted, Armor. However, before Barton could finish his words, a faster voice sounded. Expelliarmus. A magic spell flew directly towards Barton. The next moment, no one reacted. The wand in Barton's hand flew out, inserted upside down into the soft soil next to the Black Lake. It all happened so fast. These little wizards didn't even react. Only 5th-year students and professors could clearly see Erwin's move. Dumbledore exclaimed, What a proficient disarming spell! Whether it is the casting speed or the accuracy of the spell, it is impeccable. Erwin's ordinary spells have reached level 3. Under the silent and wandless spell, it can be said that Erwin has stretched it to the limit. Naturally impeccable. Snape also had a flash of surprise in his eyes. Grodya looked at Erwin. He could also use the disarming spell just now. Moreover, compared with what Erwin used, it is definitely not bad. But here's the problem. Not bad, but not strong enough. Yesterday, Grodya felt that Erwin just wanted to experience it. He had not thought about the possibility of actually hitting him. It would be too difficult. However, at this moment, He really felt that Erwin could possibly achieve that unprecedented feat. Barton looked at his empty hands. There was no reaction for a moment. Did he lose just like that? This is a bit too fast. It's really just one move, and it's done in seconds. Barton shook his head and smiled bitterly. I lost? Erwin smiled and said, I agree, Senior. Barton shook his head. I didn't give in to you. I really can't beat you. Erwin did not explain. After leaving Dacia, no one could understand the humility engraved in the bones of Dacia people. This is a kind of cultivation. Obviously, Westerners cannot understand it. The little wizards around him were also losing interest at this time, and they all thought they could see an evenly matched battle. As a result, it was over in one move. At the same time, they also have a deep understanding of Erwin's tyranny. This doesn't look like a first-year wizard. Glodia came to Erwin, asked, How is it? Do you want to continue? Erwin thought for a moment and shook his head. Forget it. It's just a break at noon. I want to take a break too. Glodia nodded. Well, this is your freedom. You can start at any time. I'm waiting for you. Erwin smiled. The surrounding students dispersed one after another. What puzzled Erwin was, but Button didn't leave. Erwin asked, What's wrong? Is there anything else? Barton hesitated for a moment and said, Can I study with you? Erwin looked at Barton. A flash of surprise flashed in his eyes. He actually saw ambition in Barton's eyes. Erwin became interested. You seem to want to become stronger? You are only in second grade. Why are you so anxious? Barton hesitated. Erwin smiled and said, It seems. You are a person with stories. If you want to learn from me, you have to pay something. And now, you don't even want to tell me the truth. Barton quickly said, That's not the case. Okay. Actually, my name should be Barton Yaxley. Erwin was stunned for a moment. Yaxley? Yaxley from the 28 pureblood tribes? The one who specializes in potions and magical animal materials. Barton nodded. Yes. Erwin asked, But why is your last name Dulu? Barton smiled bitterly and said, I am an illegitimate child. My last name is the same as my mother's. Erwin understood. Darling, there is a grudge between rich and powerful families. So fun. Erwin asked. Oh, then why are you becoming stronger now? To compete for power? Or to compete for the position of family heir? Barton was a little surprised. How do you know? Erwin rolled his eyes. Isn't it written like this in novels, movies, and TV series too? What an old routine. Barton said, I don't care about anyone in the Yaxley family, but I want to be recognized. I don't want to carry the name of this illegitimate son. So, I have to become strong enough. So strong that my brothers must pay attention to me. Erwin understood. An ambitious illegitimate child, not for power or profit, but just for a name and recognition. This novel is quite niche. Erwin said, Then how do you want me to help you? Barton said, You are strong enough. I want to become as strong as you. Erwin smiled. Then the question is, why should I help you? In other words, what can you bring me? Barton thought for a moment. I don't know. I have no money, and I have no access to the family business. Erwin smiled and said, I don't care about these. I want your loyalty. Your loyalty will get you everything you want, even more than just respect. I can help you sit on at the position of the head of the Yaxley family. Chapter 31. Barton was stunned for a moment. I don't have that much ambition. Erwin raised the corners of his mouth. It looks like a little devil with horns on its head. Are you not that ambitious, or are you afraid to think about it? Barton felt as if everything about him had been seen through. He hesitated for a moment and said, I don't dare to think about it. I just want them to recognize me. Erwin smiled and said, Ambition is a good thing. Since you have ambition, why don't you dare to expand your ambition? Believe me, you will get everything you want. Because this is what I said. Barton looked at Erwin. Yaxley is a pure-blood family and has been passed down for a long time. You can't do it. Erwin said, Why? Don't you dare to try a gamble? If you don't even have the courage to gamble, then this is your upper limit. Erwin's eyes deeply hurt Barton's fragile heart. He clenched his fists. No, I don't. I never lack courage. Erwin raised the corners of his mouth. Did you see it? The young wizard at this age is so passionate and touching. Erwin said, The Cavendi family never talks big. Stand with me, and I will let you get everything you want. This is never an empty talk. When the dust settles, you will get what you want. Everything you want. Barton looked at Erwin. Fists clenched and unclenched. Finally, he tightened his grip. Erwin didn't rush him. Young wizards at this age are indeed passionate, but at the same time, they can also be timid, especially an illegitimate son like Barton. The family has accumulated prestige in his heart for a long time. After a long time, Barton knelt on one knee, grabbing the edge of Erwin's robe. I am willing to offer you my loyalty. Erwin smiled. He is very happy. An unexpected surprise. To be honest, Barton was really an unexpected surprise. It's not because of his strength, but because of his identity. There is a person from a pureblood family, even if it is an illegitimate child. Erwin can also find a reasonable reason to take action against the pureblood family. Erwin put his hand on the top of Barton's head. Very good. I accept your allegiance. Now, stretch out your arms. Barton was confused, but he didn't hesitate at all. Put your arms in front of Erwin. Erwin's wand touched Barton's arm directly. The next moment, a lotus mark began to open. Barton's face was full of surprise. Erwin told Barton about the function of the mark. Barton was a little shocked. This thing reminded him of something. Mark of the Dark. Barton felt as if he was on a pirate ship, but this cabin is already fully booked. Can't go down anymore. Erwin raised his hand slightly. Barton stood up from the ground. Erwin said, Okay, you go first. After that, I will find you. Barton nodded. Turn around and leave. Erwin stood by the Black Lake. Slytherin is indeed the most suitable college for him. Yaxley, a family whose main business is potions, will surely accumulate a lot of wealth. But Erwin still had to think carefully about how to touch this family. After all, this is a pure-blood family. It's not something that can be done casually. Gotta work it out. Erwin put away his wand and walked towards Hogwarts Castle. Just walked into the corridor. Erwin heard a lot of noise. Erwin frowned. Malfoy. This sound is so iconic. Erwin walked forward. When I turned the corner, I saw Malfoy and the others gathering there, pointing at a figure. The tone was full of ridicule, and the figure being laughed at was none other than Hagrid. Hagrid is building a disc of vegetation. He ignored Malfoy's ridicule. He is already used to it. Is your tutor just here to make you laugh at others? Malfoy's face darkened, and he turned around to see who dared to meddle in their business. But after seeing Erwin's face clearly, Malfoy suddenly felt panicked. What happened on the train is still vivid in my mind. Especially, Erwin and Barton fought just now. Patton was powerless to fight back. Malfoy didn't even dare to say a harsh word. He took his friends and left in a hurry. Erwin came to Hagrid. Sorry. I apologize to you for the rudeness of those little wizards in our academy. Hagrid quickly put down the scissors in his hand. He seemed a little embarrassed. He had never seen such a scene before. He was ridiculed more than once because of his size. So, I have long been used to it. Hogwarts students, two joys. Hagrid and Squib Filch. Hagrid waved his hand quickly. No, it's okay. Erwin smiled and said, They are still young. I hope you won't blame them, by the way. My name is Erwin Cavendi. Nice to meet you. Hagrid was stunned for a moment. Cavendi? Erwin nodded. Yeah, what's wrong? You seem to be surprised. Hagrid said, When I was in London, I was helped by a Muggle family. If it weren't for them, I would have had a lot of trouble. They said they were from Cavendi. Their young master was studying at Hogwarts. Is that you? Erwin smiled and said, It seems that we are quite destined. There is only one Cavendi in Renton. That is my Cavendi, Hagrid said. Then I should thank you properly. Erwin waved his hand. Forget it. If you don't care about my classmates, you are already doing well, Hagrid said. This is not the same thing. You should be grateful. Would you like to visit my cabin? I can treat you with stone cakes. Believe me, you will fall in love with its taste. Hagrid felt a little uneasy when he said this. After all, he could also see that Erwin's status was very high. And a Slytherin. Erwin said, I would love to go to Hagrid, but I have to go to class now. However, I will bother you when I have time. Stonecake, I'm looking forward to it. A smile appeared on Hagrid's face. Yes, it's time for you to go to class. I'm looking forward to your arrival. My hut is just outside the Forbidden Forest. You can see it if you walk towards the Forbidden Forest. Erwin nodded. Okay, then I'll leave first. Hagrid nodded. Erwin raised the corners of his mouth. We are already on the line with Hagrid. This supplier is available. As for the stone cake, Erwin is really not that interested. After all, most people really can't bite that thing. Erwin felt that his experience at Hogwarts was excellent. This step-by-step is exactly the same as Erwin's plan. It was incredibly smooth. Erwin walked towards the flying lesson venue. That's right, his next lesson is a flying lesson. In fact, Erwin really doesn't understand why a wizard rides a broom without getting stuck in the egg. Chapter 32. It can be said that all the courses in Hogwarts, flying lessons were the last thing that interested Erwin. Even Erwin thought the divination was better than this thing. Erwin really couldn't understand the joy of having a broom sitting under his butt. Come to the open space outside the greenhouse. The course hasn't started yet, but there were already many students from Slytherin and Gryffindor houses. Every little wizard had excitement on his face. Flying is indeed a lifelong dream of mankind. When talking about God, it seems that no matter how big or small, everyone will be very happy. Saw Erwin coming. The little wizards who were actively discussing fell into a strange silence. Erwin ignored that. Instead, he came to Malfoy. He frowned at Malfoy. Malfoy swallowed. There was some fear in my heart. What are you doing? My dad is the school director. Don't act like this. Erwin smiled. What the hell? Will this kid not be able to speak without his father? Erwin said. Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. I think I need to tell you something. I don't care what you are like at home, and I don't care if your father is the school governor or whatever. You are in Slater Lynn. Then your words and deeds are also the face of Slytherin. I hope you think about your identity. Pure blood families are never continued by blood. They are passed down from generation to generation. How can you be where you are today? Your status does not depend on your platinum blonde hair, but on the ancestors of your family. So, whether it is for Slytherin or your family, pay attention to your manners. Nobility is never just what you say. It's your words and deeds. Malfoy lowered his head and dared not speak. He wanted to refute, but he felt that Erwin was quite right. Of course, the most important thing was that he didn't dare to talk back. Erwin looked at the other Slytherin students around him. What I'm talking about today is not just Malfoy. It also includes you. Don't let Slytherin be embarrassed, and don't let your family be embarrassed. Don't be like the reckless lion every day. Remember, you are Slaters. Forest. A group of Slytherin students may not listen to other words, but as long as they are compared with Gryffindor, then they will be very active and obedient. The little wizards bowed slightly. Yes, Prefect. Erwin nodded with satisfaction. Turning around, he saw a group of little lions glaring at each other. Erwin looked at Ron. Look at you. Ron was confused. What about the elegance you promised? What about the promised manners? Why do you curse? Ron wanted to talk back, but found that Erwin had a wand in his hand. Ron could only lower his head in frustration. I felt a little angry. Everyone is looking at each other angrily. Why are you scolding me? Erwin rolled his eyes at Ron. He didn't know why, but he just felt unhappy when he saw Ron. All made him say dirty words. A sin. A real sin. It affected his Cavendi's demeanor. This Ron really deserves to die. Erwin saw in the distance that Mrs. Huachi was already walking towards this side. There were tattered brooms floating around. Erwin clapped his hands. Okay, it's time for class. Everyone find your place and stand still. Everyone in Slytherin quickly took action. Not long after, the queue was completed. On the contrary are those little lions. Everyone is like herding sheep. It's so chaotic. Mrs. Huachi also saw this scene. I have to lament that when it comes to discipline, it depends on Slytherin. Mrs. Huachi flicked the wand in her hand. A handful of brooms were spread out and lay at the feet of each little wizard. Mrs. Hooch said, Okay, children, let's prepare for your first flying lesson at Hogwarts. After hearing this, the faces of both Slytherin and Gryffindor wizards were full of excitement. Mrs. Huachi raised the corners of her mouth. This was not the first time she had seen such a scene. Every little wizard taking flying lessons for the first time is like this. Mrs. Huachi said, Before that, I want to see how talented you are in flying. Have you seen the brooms at your feet? Hang your right hands on the brooms and shout up. Mrs. Huachi finished. There are little wizards who can't stand it anymore. Up. The first call. Erwin discovered that only the broom at Harry Potter's feet flew directly into the air. Mrs. Hooch looked at Harry Potter with a flash of surprise in her eyes. The broom next to Malfoy's feet flew up into the air for a distance and then landed fluttering on the ground. As for the other little wizards, including Erwin, the broom at my feet looked dead. No response. Malfoy watched Harry Potter succeed for once. His eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. Up! Shouted again. This time the broom flew directly into Malfoy's hand. Malfoy glanced at Harry Potter proudly. Harry Potter responded with an eye roll. Most of the other little wizards basically got up after trying it 3 or 4 times. Only Erwin. The broom at his feet didn't move at all. Erwin's face turned dark. So, if there are no talents displayed on the system panel, it means there are no talents at all? Erwin looked at the broom on the ground. I'll give you another chance. Otherwise, I will make you one of the fuel for today's fireplace. Mrs. What she said quickly. Mr. Erwin, you shouldn't be like this. You have to be gentle and show some emotion. However, Mrs. What she's words have not yet finished. The broom on the ground flew directly into Erwin's hand. Mrs. What she was a little confused. Erwin said, It seems these magical products sometimes require some special means. The corners of Mrs. What she's mouth twitched slightly. She had nothing to say. She has never seen this scene before. After Erwin succeeded, there was only one person present who failed. Ron Weasley. Seeing everyone's eyes focused on herself, Ron felt his face getting hot. He wants to attract attention, but he doesn't want to attract attention like this. Thinking of the method Erwin used just now, Ron thought he could use it too. So, he imitated it exactly. However, things went beyond Ron's expectation. This broom of his is obviously a tough one. After being threatened, a broom is just like a broom handle. A stick hit Ron directly in the face. In an instant, Ron's nose had a red mark. Ron held his nose and whined in pain. The little wizards around him laughed with joy. Mrs. What she said worriedly, Do I need to go to the infirmary? Ron shook his head. He didn't want to miss flying lessons. Mrs. What she didn't say much. Okay, now sit astride your broom. Hold on to the broom tightly. Wait for my whistle to sound. Then push hard on the ground. Then stabilize your body, and then slowly fall to the ground. I understand. Chapter 33. All the little wizards nodded, sitting astride the broom. Erwin, on the other hand, calmly took out his wand. If nothing else happens, according to the normal plot, our lovely Mr. Neville Longbottom will make another mess. Neville never lets anyone down, just like now. Neville had just sat astride the broom, and the next moment, he was swaying into the air. Mrs. What she just took out the whistle and hasn't blown it yet. Neville was shocked. Mr. Longbottom, what are you doing? Come down quickly. The other little wizards were also full of complaints. After all, we are about to experience flying. As a result, Neville did this and wasted time again. Mrs. What she's urging, and the complaints of these little wizards. Neville panicked instantly. Not only did it not come down, it actually jumped into the air due to an operational error. Erwin sighed. Sure enough, Neville never lets anyone down. Erwin sometimes didn't know if Neville was really stupider than the average child. Erwin waved his wand. Here comes Neville. The best way Erwin can think of now is to cast a flying spell. Following the spell, Neville seemed to be lifted up by an invisible hand and rushed towards Erwin. Said it before. The flying curse does not affect the space and pull it directly. A flight path is required. So, strictly speaking, flying curse can even be used as an attack spell. For example now, Neville rushed towards Erwin like a cannonball. Slytherin students are so smart. As early as when Erwin took action, after seeing Malfoy being slapped in the face by a toad, they subconsciously separated on both sides. So did some of the bright Gryffindor students. However, there are always idiots in this world. For example, Ron is obsessed with watching the excitement of his college classmates. Harry Potter didn't even have time to warn Ron. The next moment, Neville's bulging body collided directly with Ron. Ron exclaimed, was kicked away directly. Erwin also quickly cut off the spell. Then, he quickly took 2 steps back. There was a bang. Neville landed heavily where Erwin had been standing. It stirred up a lot of dust. Erwin waved his hand. Sweep away the dust in front of you. A group of young wizards focused their attention on the central location. Neville looked around with a confused expression. It seems that he still hasn't realized what's going on. Mrs. Hooch breathed a sigh of relief. Mr. Erwin, because of you, Mr. Longbottom avoided a disaster. 10 points for Slytherin. Erwin bowed slightly. Thank you for your generosity. But, Mrs. Hooch, Neville is fine. But the one under his butt may be dying. Mrs. What she was shocked. That's when I discovered it. There is another person under that butt. Harry Potter exclaimed. Ron? By now our poor man Mr. Ron Weasley was rolling his eyes. Neville's weight was no joke. Plus flying down from the sky. Under the acceleration of gravity, Erwin feels that Ron is alive now because he is too poor. So poverty can give a person a strong body. For example, how poor Serizawa is. From this point of view, being too rich is not a good thing. Neville also realized that the bottom of his buttocks was soft. No wonder it doesn't hurt at all when it falls. Neville also tweaked his, but to feel it. Ron rolled his eyes so hard that he could hardly see his eyeballs anymore. Erwin was shocked. Do these two have any grudge? In other words, Neville is not as honest as he looks. Is this guy a scheming villain? Taking the opportunity to retaliate? Erwin said, Neville, if you don't come down, the pad under your butt will die. Only then did Neville react and exclaimed, Stand up quickly. Neville left so that Ron could breathe fresh air. Chest rises and falls violently. Mrs. Huichi breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, still alive. Ron now has 2 broken bones. The whole person was lying in the pit. He can't take flying lessons. Of course, this has nothing to do with Erwin. He had no interest in flying lessons. Mrs. Hooch took Ron to the infirmary. With Erwin's participation, the plot has undergone many changes. For example, Neville, who was originally sent to the infirmary, became Ron. After Mrs. Huichi left, all the little wizards were eager to try. I want to sneak up to the sky and fly around. After all, some little wizards have already boasted about riding a flying broomstick, so they also want to show off in front of others. Among them was Malfoy. However, seeing Erwin's dangerous look, Malfoy gave up the idea. Unlike Slytherin, Gryffindor has never been short of reckless little lions. Erwin couldn't control Gryffindor. Plus, there's no Hermione here to counsel. These little lions finally couldn't resist the temptation in their hearts. As the first lion cub takes off, it was as if a fuse had been lit among the little lions of Gryffindor. Just a blink of an eye. 5 or 6 little lions began to fly in the air. Erwin ignored the lion cubs, because he knew that someone would teach them a lesson. Sure enough, not even 2 minutes. Professor McGonagall appeared in the clearing angrily. How dare you? Professor McGonagall waved the wand in her hand several times. The little lions were like cats being held up by the scruff of the neck, floating next to Professor McGonagall. Professor McGonagall said coldly, Everyone will deduct 20 points for Gryffindor. A total of 6 people, Gryffindor's points were directly deducted 102. This resulted in these little lions losing their Academy Cup savings on the first day of school. This is because many Gryffindor seniors helped the Academy score a lot on the first day. Otherwise, they will all have to directly deduct a negative number. And the little snakes are completely different from Gryffindor. A direct contrast. Professor McGonagall felt tired. Why, among her students, there is no student like Erwin. Can you manage other little wizards and save the professors some trouble? So, can you transfer Erwin to Gryffindor? The little lions all looked dejected, while the faces of Slytherin's little wizards were full of fun. After all, the fight between the little lions and the little snakes is not something that happens in a day or two. Being able to see the deflated lion cub was a great joy for Slytherin. The first flying lesson ended with countless accidents. In the afternoon, there is also a lesson on the history of magic. And this is also the only class among the 4 classes a day that is not attended by Slytherin and Gryffindor together. Chapter 34. In this class, the classmates of the little snakes were replaced by Ravenclaws. The whole class seemed to be a stage for Hermione and Erwin. The 2 of them helped 2 colleges gain 50 points for just 1 lesson on the history of magic. The ghostly Professor Cuthbert Binns had a smile on his face. After all, everyone likes top students. After class, on the way to the auditorium, Hermione went with Erwin. Hermione was in high spirits. Erwin, I'm so grateful to you. Ravenclaw is perfect for me. Those seniors and seniors, they make me feel the joy of learning. I like this atmosphere so much. Erwin smiled and said, So, the one that suits you is the best. Congratulations, Hermione, for finding the college that truly suits you. Hermione nodded. That's right. I borrowed a book from a senior sister. It records a lot of things in the magical world. Do you want to read it? The book is too heavy and I can't lift it. So in the lounge, if you need it. When I finish reading it, you can go to my place and take it for a look. Erwin thought of the books Hermione usually read that were thicker than dictionaries. He waved his hand quickly. No need. Just see for yourself. Hermione snorted, a little disappointed. After all, it's really a pity that I can't share my knowledge with others. The corners of Erwin's mouth twitched slightly. Sure enough, the top students are always the top students wherever they are. Always so outrageous. The most outrageous thing is that when a top student wants to assimilate you, it will be very scary. After having a bite to eat in the auditorium, Erwin did not follow the Slytherin students back to the common room. Instead, he came to Professor McGonagall's office. Professor McGonagall, are you there? I'm Erwin. The office door slowly opens. Professor McGonagall was sitting at her desk, wearing round glasses. He is writing something at his desk. Wave to Erwin. Erwin, please sit down first. I will prepare the content for tomorrow's class. We will talk later. Erwin nodded. Looking at the furnishings in Professor McGonagall's office, there are orange lights and a circle of bookshelves in the office. The bookshelf is full of books, and the level of wear and tear on the books can be seen vaguely. Professor McGonagall should read it often. Sure enough, it is clear that the person Hermione admires most is Professor McGonagall. These two are so similar. They all have the same hard work and the same meticulousness in doing things. There are also a large number of books placed on Professor McGonagall's desk. From Erwin's perspective, Professor McGonagall was nowhere to be seen. About half an hour later, Professor McGonagall straightened up. He rubbed his shoulders. "You're really old," Erwin said. "Professor McGonagall, do you want me to give you a massage?" Massage in the Muggle world. It is very good for relieving fatigue. Professor McGonagall was surprised. "Is there anything like this?" Erwin smiled, came behind Professor McGonagall, pressed gently on Professor McGonagall's shoulder. Professor McGonagall narrowed her eyes comfortably. "It's amazing. I'm really not that tired anymore," Erwin said. "You often work at your desk. Therefore, your shoulder and neck are damaged. This cannot be repaired by magic." Professor McGonagall nodded. "It's amazing," Erwin said. "The Muggle world is developing very fast now. There is no magic, but they have used their own wisdom to create many things that replace magic." Professor McGonagall said, "It seems. It's time for me to learn about things in the Muggle world. Well, I feel a lot better. Sit there first, and let's talk about your findings." Erwin sat back down. Professor McGonagall said, "I have already researched the matter of transfiguration with its own spells and counterspells. Your guess should be true, but in order to confirm this, I need to do more experiments for the sake of rigor. However, it should be correct. You can prepare a manuscript in advance. Then I can help you publish it in some publications in your name. Later, there will be a Transfiguration Association that will confirm your guess. As long as it is certain, then believe me, your gains will be great." Erwin said, "Okay, Professor. I will arrange it." Professor McGonagall nodded. "Well, if you don't understand something, you can ask me. I will help you improve it." Erwin smiled and said, "That's too much, Professor Shemeg. In fact, I don't have much control over the transformation technique. It's just a temporary idea. If you really let me complete it independently, I will really perturbed." Professor McGonagall said, "You have a good talent. I can see it. If you are really interested in transfiguration, I can teach you. I mean, if you are willing." Erwin stood up. "Of course I do." Professor McGonagall opened the drawer. "Pull out a notebook from inside. These are the notes I took when I was in school. So many years have passed. As my study deepened, I also added some more. You can take it and read it. It covers some of my understanding of transfiguration." Erwin took it with both hands, as if he had found a treasure. These are Professor McGonagall's notes. In the original work, Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall are the two well-deserved masters of transfiguration. At least, Erwin had never seen anyone else who could turn a table into a pig. Professor McGonagall said, "You are the most talented little wizard I have ever seen. You are excellent. So, if you are really interested in transfiguration, I think you can achieve something in transfiguration." Erwin bowed slightly. "Thank you, Professor. I won't let you down." Professor McGonagall nodded. "Okay, then you should go back early. If there is anything you don't understand, just come and ask me. But remember, you can't just try things beyond your abilities. If you really want to experiment, just come to me." Erwin nodded. "Okay, Professor. You should go to bed early." After leaving Professor McGonagall's office, Erwin flipped through the notebook in his hand. The joy in his eyes became stronger and stronger. This can be called a treasure book of transfiguration. It records Professor McGonagall's understanding of transfiguration, from shallow to deep. In other words, this notebook is simply the ladder to the master of transfiguration. Put the notebook away carefully. Erwin went straight to Snape's room. Standing in the doorway of Snape's office, Erwin took 2 deep breaths. He was still very nervous about facing Snape. That's Snape, Hogwarts Black Bat, who can be calm and honest. Erwin can't do it anyway. Dragon blood. Erwin read out the password softly. Then the office door opened. It was very quiet in the office. It even feels a bit eerie. It is completely different from the warm feeling of Professor McGonagall. Erwin even seemed to feel a sinister wind sweeping through his body. Chapter 35. Erwin couldn't help but shudder. When will Snape escape from this evil horror? That's outrageous. No wonder everyone thinks Snape is not a good person. On the one hand, it's because Snape is a venomous person, and on the other hand, it's because Snape is really too evil. In fact, Erwin didn't understand why Professor Snape couldn't live more like a human being. You have to close yourself off every day. While Erwin was thinking, a voice came from inside. Why don't you come in yet? Erwin quickly shouted. It's coming, it's coming. After entering the office, Snape's office and Professor McGonagall are simply two extremes. If Professor McGonagall's office is like a cozy bedroom, then Snape's office is like a Frankenstein's laboratory. There are various materials placed on the shelves on both sides. There are also some transparent glass jars with potion ingredients soaked in them. The air was still filled with the smell of potion. I can't say it smells bad, but it definitely doesn't smell good. Snape was in front of a cauldron. Bubbles bubbled in the crucible. Erwin stood aside calmly. No one dared to disturb Snape. Not long after, the bubbles in the crucible gradually subsided. Then, Snape picked up a glass bottle from the side, opened the small hole on the side of the crucible. A drop of pink liquid dripped into the bottle. Snape breathed a sigh of relief. Put the cork on the bottle. Set the bottle aside carefully. This actually made Erwin interested. Look at Snape like this. It seems like this potion is quite precious. Snape said, What are you still doing standing there? Come here and help me deal with the potion. Erwin nodded quickly. Come to Snape's side. Get started. Snape watched for a moment. A look of satisfaction flashed in his eyes, but it was quickly hidden. Erwin carefully handled the medicinal materials in his hands. He was afraid that Snape would find a reason to speak harshly if he wasn't careful. Fortunately, Snape must have thought about taking the exam, so the potion given was not difficult. Erwin also learned about the processing methods of these potions from books. Snape saw that Erwin was doing well and stopped staring at Erwin, busy on the side. Erwin hesitated. That, Professor. Snape stopped what he was doing. What? Erwin asked. I want to know. Is there any potion that can make a person without magic power gain magic power? Snape frowned. No. If there were, this potion would also become a forbidden one. Why do you ask this? Erwin shook his head. Nothing. I'm just curious. Snape said, It is no longer something that magic potions can solve to make a person without magic have magic. However, according to legend, during the Merlin period, wizards used completely different magic. Most of them used prayer, or exchange it with the gods. Someone once gained the ability to gain magic power by exchanging with the gods. Erwin said, Era of Merlin? It seems that this should be a legend. Snape said, Maybe. However, there is news that when Grindelwald was around, he once let one of his childhood companions, a muggle, gain magical power. But I don't know if the news is true or false. Erwin's pupils shrank slightly. Grindelwald? Erwin asked this question, of course, for the sake of the Cavendi family. People in the Cavendi family have been cultivated for loyalty. If Erwin wants to plot against the magical world, he shouldn't start looking for his subordinates all over again. People from the Cavendi family are naturally the best choice. Snape said, Don't think about exploring these things. These things are not accessible to you. Even if he does, it is absolutely forbidden. If you don't want to go to Azkaban, just put your thoughts away. Erwin nodded quickly. Concentrate on processing the potion materials in front of you. Snape glanced at Erwin. A flash of remembrance flashed in his eyes. Once upon a time. The same is true for the new patriarch of the Cavendi family. The two of them were on the same workbench, brewing the potion together. Those days were the rare times when Snape was happy. However, alas, everything has changed. Snape could not afford to offend the enemies of the Cavendi family. Even if Dumbledore took action, it was only to stop the other party from taking action against Erwin. The most important thing is that no one can control these things. This is the fate of the Cavendi family. Not even Dumbledore or Snape could influence this matter. Every time he thought of this, Snape would feel pain in his heart. However, now, their child has entered the magical world again. Once again, the fate of the Cavendi family began. Snape was equally unchangeable. Snape shook his fist. This time, no matter what happens, nothing should happen to Erwin, even if it costs his life. He must also keep Erwin, even if he can't change the fate of the Cavendi family. Even if, in the end, it is just a moth flying into the flame. But he still had no hesitation. For a promise. It's also for his rare friendship. Erwin, who was handling the potion, felt a wave of stares. Turn around and look. What's wrong, Professor Snape? Is there something wrong with my handling? Snape turned his head. No, you handled it well. You should go back. It's getting late. Erwin nodded. Take off the gloves on your hands. Then Professor Snape, can I still come tomorrow? Snape nodded. Yeah. However, your method is too ordinary. Take this away and go back and take a look. I hope to see some improvement in you tomorrow. I don't want my potion to be used by you. Waste. Erwin quickly took it. He said hello to Snape and left quickly. Get out of the office. Erwin looked through it. Sure enough, Diary of the Half-Blood Prince. Okay. In one night, he learned the secrets of 2 tutors. If he doesn't take off, who will take off? After returning to the lounge, the little wizards have all gone to rest. Erwin returned to his room. Sit down at your desk and start studying. The hard work of the 2 professors made Erwin really reluctant to sleep. He loves learning at heart. Time passed bit by bit. Just then, there were crisp sounds on the glass. Erwin turned to look. An owl was knocking on his glass. Erwin opened the window. He took some food from the side and fed it to the owl, then picked up the letter. The letter was sent to him by Old Tom. The letter said that he had bought a shop in Diagon Alley according to Erwin's order and asked Erwin what to do. Next, Chapter 36. Ever since Old Tom was imprinted by Erwin. Although Old Tom has no magic power, ordinary Muggle expulsion spells are no longer effective against him. To be honest, Old Tom might be similar to a squib right now. Therefore, Old Tom can go to Diagon Alley to help Erwin do things. Close the letter. Erwin thought for a moment. He actually had no idea what to do with this store. It may be caused by the genes of Dasha people. Everywhere he went, Erwin thought about having an industry. This way he can feel at ease. Erwin stood by the window. Think for a moment. He was now at Hogwarts. If there was anything Hogwarts didn't lack, it was something that could be easily obtained and profited from. That must be the material of magical animals, or the magic potions in the Forbidden Forest. Hagrid must have quite a few on hand. Erwin stood by the window and could vaguely see Hagrid's hut in the darkness. Erwin thought for a moment. He can't sleep now either. Why not go to Hagrid's place? Talk to Hagrid. See if we can do a business. Thinking of this, Erwin's figure flashed and turned into a streak of purple smoke, flying towards the Forbidden Forest. What Erwin didn't know was, at this time, on the top floor of Hogwarts, next to a window, Dumbledore watched the purple smoke fly away. A smile appeared on his face. Is he really a little wizard full of secrets, or are all the Cavendi family like this? Apparition is not something you should master at your age. I just don't know if Snape will let him produce it. The thought of meeting that old friend. He must be surprised to see you. Dumbledore was lost in thought as he thought about it. After all, that was his lost love. Erwin lands in front of Hagrid's hut. Outside the dark Forbidden Forest, Hagrid's hut was the only source of light. So Erwin certainly wouldn't have gone the wrong way. Come to the door of the hut. Erwin raised his hand and knocked on the wooden door. There was a clanking sound coming from inside. Who? The voice sounded panicked. Erwin scratched his head. Hagrid is not doing any manual work. So panicked. It's me. Hagrid. Erwin Cavendi. The wooden door opened quickly. Hagrid's figure appeared. Both of them were surprised and couldn't hide their excitement. Oh, Erwin, why are you here at this time? Erwin smiled and said, I couldn't sleep, so I came to see you. Didn't you invite me to be your guest? Is it inconvenient? How about I come next time? Hagrid shook his head. No, I'm just a little surprised, you know? It's not easy for anyone to come here, let alone come so late. Erwin smiled and said, Then can you invite me in and sit down? Hagrid said quickly, Of course. Please come in. Erwin walked into the cabin. Don't look at Hagrid being so sloppy. But although the room was very messy, it was not dirty and there was no peculiar smell. Erwin found a place to sit down. Hagrid poured Erwin a drink. Looking at the dark green juice, Erwin really didn't have anything on his mind. Hagrid said, Erwin, you shouldn't be here at this time. You should be sleeping at this time. Erwin smiled and said, Hogwarts never lacks students who go out at night, right? Hagrid scratched his head. It seems so. Erwin said, I came to you for some business. I need some magical animal materials, or potions. Do you have any here? Hagrid said, Yes, I have a lot of these things. Every time I patrol the Forbidden Forest, I will pick up some. If you need it, I will give it to you. What do you want? Erwin said, You misunderstood Hagrid. I didn't mean for you to give it to me. I need a lot. I have a shop in Diagon Alley, and I plan to sell these materials. So, I plan to buy them from you. Hagrid said, That's it. But I don't know if you want enough. Come with me. After saying that, Hagrid took Erwin out of the cabin. We came to a smaller wooden house on the side. Hagrid opened the door. It's all in there. See if it's enough. Erwin took the oil lamp from Hagrid. I took a look inside. Erwin was stunned for a moment. Be a good boy. This is full of them. Some of the potions had been dried and bundled into a pile. Throw it there casually. Erwin even saw a bundle of white fur. Although I don't know how much time has passed, it still exudes bursts of holy aura and weak fluorescence. This is F************* G unicorn hair. There is actually a bundle of this stuff? Hagrid said. I don't know if you need enough. If you don't, I will go for a walk in the Forbidden Forest twice more. Erwin said. Enough. Absolutely enough. However, many of your things have lost their medicinal properties and are not properly kept. Why didn't you sell them? Hagrid said. Most of those shops are owned by pure-blood families, and they lower my prices. So, you understand what I mean. Erwin nodded. Sure enough, capitalists exist no matter where in the world they are. Erwin said, I want all of these. I can buy them at the market price. Do you think that's okay, Hagrid? Hagrid quickly waved his hand. No. The market price is too expensive. You can't make any money. Erwin smiled and said, Don't worry. Since I bought it, I will definitely make a profit. I will also collect all your materials from now on. I will come over once a week, and you can save more by then. Hagrid nodded. That's no problem. I can pick up a lot of them if I go to the Forbidden Forest. Erwin smiled. Sure enough, Hagrid was indeed very rich, but his money was not realized. Now it's better. It's cheaper for him. So much material is worth a lot of money. Erwin said, Then if I need some materials from the Forbidden Forest, can you also help me find them? Hagrid said, Most of them are okay. What do you want? Erwin said, No at the moment. I just want to ask first. Erwin and Hagrid returned to the hut and calculated the prices of these things. Then, Erwin gave the money directly to Hagrid. But how to send out so many things is a problem. Hagrid saw Erwin's dilemma. Asked, What's wrong? Erwin said, I'm thinking, how should I deliver these things to Diagon Alley? Hagrid scratched his head. I can help you if you need it. Erwin's eyes lit up. Is that okay? If that's the case, you've really helped me a lot. Hagrid nodded. Yeah, just leave me an address and I'll send it over. Erwin quickly left the address. Then every week from now on, you can just send the goods directly there. I will arrange for someone to contact you then. Chapter 37. After leaving Hagrid's hut, Erwin gave up the idea of visiting the Forbidden Forest at night. It makes sense, if not unnecessary. Erwin really didn't want to go into the Forbidden Forest in the middle of the night. Do you really think this place is that easy to visit? That was the Forbidden Forest, one of the most dangerous places in Hogwarts, especially now that there's a faceless man wandering around Hogwarts. Although according to the original plot, the faceless man at this time has no idea of entering the Forbidden Forest to find unicorns. But who knows if there will be any surprises? After all, Erwin had already tried it. The plot can be changed. Erwin walked towards Hogwarts Castle, passed by the Black Lake, and passed by the square. Hogwarts has a different scenery at night. If Hogwarts during the day is a vibrant wizarding school, then Hogwarts at night is like a beast that chooses people to eat. In the darkness, it opened its blood-red mouth, waiting for a poor lost lamb to offer to feed. Especially when Erwin knew that Hogwarts itself was a huge magical object. Come to the corridor. Look at the statues lined on both sides. Erwin couldn't help but become a little curious about it. This thing can be said to be the core defensive force of Hogwarts. In the original book, under Professor McGonagall's wand, these things can come alive and be used to fight enemies. The combat effectiveness is quite strong. While Erwin was observing these statues, suddenly, Erwin's heart skipped a beat. With a flip of his wrist, the wand appeared in his hand. Armor protection. A looming purple armor shrouded Erwin's body, which didn't look so solid. But the appearance of the armor can already be vaguely seen. The next moment of armor protection and blessing. A colored light unique to the curse hit Erwin's body. Then it was offset by the armor protection. Erwin reacted very quickly, pointing the wand in his right hand into the darkness, and there was already an extra grenade in his left hand. Who? In the dark. There were bursts of footsteps. Mr. Cavendi, you should be sleeping at this time, right? Why are you wandering in the corridor? Erwin frowned. As the opponent's figure appears, an elegant bat came to a location not far from Erwin. Professor Snape? Erwin was a little confused. What the hell is this Snape? He showed up in the middle of the night and took action directly. Is this reasonable? But I felt the wear and tear of the armor on my body. Snape didn't seem to be using much force. If this kind of curse hits a person, it will only cause pain at most, but will not cause any consequences. Snape said, Put that thing away in your hand. You should know that it can't hurt me. Erwin was noncommittal. Put away the grenades. However, the wand was still in Erwin's hand. Not only did he not relax, but he tightened his grip. Snape naturally noticed Erwin's actions. A flash of appreciation flashed in his eyes. But he said, when facing an enemy that you cannot match, while staying vigilant, you must also clearly show weakness to the enemy. Erwin bowed slightly. I understand the professor's teachings. Snape glanced in the direction Erwin had come from. You went to the Forbidden Forest? Erwin shook his head. No, I just want to find Hagrid. A mocking smile appeared on Snape's lips. It was obvious that this had become a habit for Snape. It's the same no matter who you're facing. I don't think you're the kind of person who wants to make friends with others, especially a mixed-race giant. Erwin smiled and said, what the professor said is a bit biased against me. In fact, I really like to make friends with people. According to Dacia, one more friend means one more path. Snape snorted coldly. I didn't realize that Mr. Cavendi, who caused a sensation in Hogwarts when he first started school, actually likes to study the culture of Dacia. Erwin said, Professor, you suddenly attacked me and stopped me. It must have been more than just to mock me. It was indeed my fault for traveling at night. I am willing to admit my mistake. Snape said, night walks? What's wrong with night walks? Students at Hogwarts never lack night walks. However, as a Slytherin, if your purpose of night walks is just for fun like those stupid lions and fearless adventure, you, the hidden prefect, will make me very disappointed. Then, tell me the truth. Mr. Cavendi, what is the purpose of your night tour? Erwin said, of course, Professor, I am Slytherin. Everything is for the greater good. I bought a shop in Diagon Alley. So, I need to sell some magical animal materials or potions. And Hagrid, as the guardian of the Forbidden Forest, will have many such things. Erwin didn't feel like he had anything to hide. This is not a shameful thing. The main thing is, Erwin wanted to see if he could pull Snape onto a boat. If you can, it will really make a lot of money. Of course, this is not something to rush. Snape breathed a subtle sigh of relief. Very good. Just know that you are a Slytherin. You can go out at night, but as you are so arrogant, I advise you not to go out at night. Otherwise, if you are caught, Slytherin will deduct points for you. I think you know your fate. Erwin nodded. I understand, Professor. Snape waved his hand. Now, go back to sleep. Erwin nodded. Turning around and about to leave, Snape said, don't go to the Forbidden Forest in the short term. Erwin paused. Without asking any more questions, he nodded and turned to leave. Snape looked in the direction Erwin left. Sighed. Somewhat disappointed, but also some appreciative. Disappointment was because he felt a little hurt when he saw Erwin guarding him. Even though Erwin turned around and left, he didn't put away his wand. Appreciation, also because of this. Snape stood in the corridor, watching Erwin's leaving figure. You have a great kid. He'll be better than any of us. Arrive at the door of the Slytherin common room. Erwin finally felt relieved, putting the wand away. Although Snape's attitude towards him has always been very good, but Erwin wouldn't let his guard down either. This is Erwin's habit. To be able to live in Renton until now, at such a young age, has grown the Cavendi family to where it is today. Erwin never relied on luck. He knows very well that no matter who he is dealing with, he must be wary, even if that person is very friendly to you. After all, Erwin had already suffered such a loss and almost paid the price with his life. Although ruthless, you can live longer. Chapter 38. Come to the lounge. Erwin was in no hurry to go back to his room. Instead, he was sitting on the sofa in front of the fireplace, reviewing what Snape had said. Since coming to Hogwarts, many things have been too weird. Snape's attitude, Dumbledore's attitude. If we just talk about Dumbledore, Erwin can guess a few things based on his knowledge of Dumbledore. Dumbledore might have wanted to be Harry Potter's nanny. But, add Snape's words. Erwin was a little confused. Erwin could only think of one possibility. That is, my parents are not simple. In other words, it is very possible that his parents were also wizards in the past. Otherwise, I can't explain why I was sorted into Slytherin. I can't explain why Snape is so kind to me. But if my parents were wizards, why would they leave the magical world? According to Erwin's knowledge, the current wizarding world is actually very interesting. Not all wizards who graduate from Hogwarts stay in the wizarding world. After graduating from Hogwarts, wizards will face the problem of employment. Among them, those with excellent grades can enter the Ministry of Magic, become an Auror, or sit in an office. This kind of people stay in the wizarding world, but there are only so many employment opportunities in the wizarding world. Many wizards cannot find jobs. This resulted in a large number of impoverished wizards. Some poor wizards are reluctant to part with their wands, so they will be active in places like Nocturne Alley, working hard every day to stay alive. Others will choose to break their wands, register with the Ministry of Magic, and never use magic spells again for the rest of their lives, and then be sent to the Muggle world to become social animals. So, don't underestimate anyone around you. Maybe a clerk who looks very inconspicuous may have been a wizard before. My parents must have been in this situation and left the magic world. Of course, it's not because I can't survive in the magical world. According to the background of the Cavendi family, even if their parents do not work and exchange gold for gold galleons, they can still live well. No one thinks that Erwin can reach his current status because he started from scratch. That is all the foundation of the Cavendi family. Otherwise, Erwin would not have been able to develop the Cavendi family to this extent in just a few years. However, there is a doubt about this. Erwin was basically certain that the death of his parents was caused by someone from the magical world. The wizard who broke his wand, according to the hidden rules of the wizarding world, will never seek revenge no matter what the grudge is. Because wizards just look down on muggles. This is looking down upon at the level of life. Naturally, no wizard would seek revenge on muggles. In this case, why would a wizard take action against his parents? Erwin can't figure it out. The key is that he doesn't have anyone to ask him now. Dumbledore and Snape definitely knew, but Erwin didn't think they would tell him. If they could have said it, they would have said it. The truth is also one of the reasons why Erwin opened a store in Diagon Alley. He needs to know everything. Leaning on the sofa, Erwin felt a little headache. I have clearly traveled through time into a children's magic story, so why does it feel like it is developing towards the legend of Zhenhuan now? This is really annoying. Things that are beyond one's control are the most annoying. Hey, Erwin, what are you doing here? Erwin followed the sound. It was Grodia. Erwin smiled and said, Prefect, are you still up so late? Grodia sat on the sofa on the other side. Said, You haven't slept either. I just went to inspect the dormitory. I plan to go back to sleep. I didn't find that you were not in the dormitory. Erwin said, If you can't sleep, come out and sit. Grodia nodded. That's it. Do you want to chat? I think I can be a good listener. Erwin shook his head. That's not necessary. After all, I just can't sleep. I'm not trapped by love like other little wizards. I have countless worries. Grodia smiled and said, You're right. I've seen too many of these things. Erwin said, By the way, I haven't asked the prefect yet. Are you from the Selwyn family? Grodia nodded. Yeah. You actually know the Selwyn family? Erwin smiled and said, I still know the names of the 28 pureblood tribes. Grodia waved his hand. Come on. Of the 28 pureblood clans, there is only one name left. There are not many active ones anymore. Take our Selwyn as an example. This generation, say I am the only one left in the Erwin family. There are only 2 shops left that can barely survive. There was a mocking look on Grodia's face. Erwin was a little surprised. It seems that the only descendant of the Selwyn family has some disdain for pureblood families. This is somewhat interesting. But think about it. The 28 pureblood tribes now exist in name only, except for a few that still have industries. Many others seem to be on the verge of annihilation. Just like Ibua, this generation's Ibua descendant is Hannah Ibua, who sits on the Iron Throne, already a half-blood wizard. The Black family, after Sirius died, immediately cut off the inheritance. The only ones who can still take action now are the Malfoy family, the Yaxley family, and a few other families. Of the 28 pureblood tribes, not even 8 can still maintain their original glory. Only the pureblood family of Malfoy occupies the Hogwarts school board seat. It just so happened that these pureblood families were extremely proud. I don't know what to be proud of. Grodia said, Okay, don't talk about me. I am more curious than me. What is your last name, Junior? Erwin said, Cavendi. My last name is Cavendi. Grodia said, There is no Cavendi in the wizarding world. Even I checked, before you. There is not even the appearance of Cavendi, including all the graduates of Hogwarts. Erwin smiled and said, Maybe the sorting hat made the wrong sorting. Who knows? Grodia said, This is not the first time you have said this. The sorting hat will never make a mistake. Since the junior doesn't want to say it, then forget it. It's getting late. I'm going to rest. You should also rest early. If I remember correctly, you should have a defense against the dark arts class tomorrow. I think that will be an unforgettable experience for you. After Grodia left, Erwin stretched. Defense against the dark arts class? Faceless man. Tusk. To be honest, Erwin is really curious. Chapter 39. After returning to his dormitory, Erwin first wrote back to old Tom. I told old Tom about Hagrid, then let the owl send it out. Then, Erwin took out the unknown pet egg from his backpack. Then he took out a few more porcelain bottles. This is what Erwin asked Hagrid for. The blood of magical animals. There's even a vial of unicorn blood inside. Of course, this doesn't come from killing unicorns. Instead, Hagrid once encountered an injured unicorn and collected a few. When Erwin brought up the need for the blood of magical animals, Hagrid gave it to him. Hagrid didn't even think about whether Erwin would do anything bad with the unicorn's blood. His favorable impression of Erwin is extremely high now. He shook the porcelain bottle in his hand. Silver blood swayed in the bottle. There's even a bit of wall hanging. If this is red wine, it is definitely a good wine. Erwin suddenly thought. According to the original book, the unicorn is a holy messenger and an elf between heaven and earth. Therefore, its blood is cursed. Anyone who attempts to harm the unicorn will be cursed by the unicorn. Therefore, although the blood of unicorns has many wonderful uses, except for warriors like Voldemort, most people dare not take advantage of him. But oh, what if? Erwin said what if? If someone is not paying attention, he will secretly feed him a drop of unicorn blood. Will he also be cursed by the unicorn? Then this thing can be used as a weapon? Erwin suddenly felt that this was a very researchable topic. If it's really feasible, can't this thing be used as poison? Shaking his head, Erwin shook these messy thoughts out of his mind. Don't think too much. I feel like he has more and more potential as a villain. Erwin uncorked the bottle. The starlight in the starry sky seems to be drawn by the unicorn's blood, lingering next to the porcelain bottle. It looks really good. Erwin dropped the unicorn's blood on the egg in front of him. The silver blood was absorbed directly as soon as it came into contact with this mysterious egg. Erwin quickly checked the egg's information. Mysterious egg. Requires the blood of magical animals to hatch. Current hatching progress, 2 out of 100. So, can a drop of unicorn blood equal 2 points of progress? Erwin looked at the porcelain bottle in his hand. The unicorn's blood itself was hard-won. Therefore, it is extremely difficult to obtain it. The blood in the porcelain bottle in my hand can only make up 7 or 8 drops. Erwin continued to drip the unicorn's blood from the porcelain bottle. And as the progress increases, after 5 drops, the 6th drop of blood came. It was not absorbed by the egg, but began to slide along the outer wall of the egg. Erwin has quick eyes and quick hands. Put it in a porcelain vase. What's going on? Are you still making trouble? Erwin looked at the egg, which was stuck at 10% progress. Think about this for a moment. Is it possible that the blood of each magical animal has an upper limit? Erwin continued his experiments. The blood of 2 more magical animals was replaced. Finally, Erwin came to a conclusion. The blood of unicorn can increase the progress by 2% at a time. At most, it can reach 10%. As for other magical animals, they can achieve 1% progress at a time. The most you can give is 5%. In other words, the different strengths and weaknesses of magical animals bring different progress. The upper limit of saturation is 5 drops. The progress of this egg has now reached 20%. In other words, if it was an ordinary magical animal, Erwin would need 16 more, but if it were the same as a unicorn, he would only need 8. It doesn't seem to be difficult. Erwin put the egg away. He was so curious as to what was inside this egg. The products produced by the system must be excellent. Erwin is full of expectations. Lying on the bed, Erwin still couldn't sleep. The more things were on his mind, the harder it was for him to sleep. Reluctantly, Erwin opened the system panel. Name: Erwin Cavendi. Age: 11 years old. Magic level: level 3. Identity: current patriarch of the Cavendi family, first-year freshman at Hogwarts. Hidden prefect of first-year Slytherin. Talent: transfiguration talent, 5 out of 10. Normal charm talent, 6 out of 10. Dark magic talent, 10 out of 10. Potions talent, 6 out of 10. Ancient magic talent */10. Not unlocked. Needs special ways to unlock. Pets: none. Special skill card: Mana Reserve, gold. Magical Animal Affinity, gold. Magic Mastery: Flying Curse, level 3. Floating Curse, level 3. Iron Armor Curse, level 3. Expelliarmus, level 3. Occlumency, level 3. Summon the Gods and Guards, level 3. Apparition Purple Lotus Customized Version, level 3. Death Curse, level 3. Soul Seizing Curse, level 4. Cruciatus Curse, level 4. Magic Proficiency, 1,800. Props. Grindelwald's puppet, current reputation value, 2,700. Erwin looked at his reputation value, and his eyes lit up. Hey, I have saved so much. He can draw the lottery again. These are all lottery opportunities that Erwin saved after coming to Hogwarts. Sure enough, Hogwarts is really a treasure. These little wizards are also good leaks. Erwin was pleased with this. Hogwarts is indeed a blessed place. Erwin opened the lottery interface. Now that he has reputation points, of course he is going to draw a lottery. He still has too few means now. Erwin directly started 10 draws in a row. Ding. 10 consecutive draws are over. Get the reward. B. Blue guaranteed reward. Talent points x1. The corners of Erwin's mouth twitched slightly. Sure enough, the lottery will never let you down. What the hell? All hot chicken. Just a guaranteed reward. Isn't it too outrageous? However, Erwin has already won the lottery many times. So Erwin was already used to this lottery system. Better than nothing. At least there are 2 bags of Whalong spicy strips. You can also perform tooth festivals. Erwin opened the package and took a bite. Viciously. It's like chewing on the bones of the system. A bag of spicy strips was quickly consumed. Erwin threw the package away. Without hesitation, just start the lottery again. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Cards flew up one by one. The next moment, Erwin's eyes lit up. Purple 1 or 2. Erwin was excited. Sure enough, no dog loses every day, and no child cries every day. Lottery is indeed the best way to change your destiny. Ding. 10 consecutive draws are over. Get the reward. B. Blue guaranteed reward. Talent points x1. Purple reward. Magical blade shadowless. 100 draw purple guaranteed reward. Fully automatic magic potion production, line x1. Erwin understood. That's what happened. I thought my character had exploded. It turned out to be a guarantee. But okay, at least 2 purple ones. But what is the situation of this fully automatic potion production line? Erwin opened the item and introduced it in detail. Full automatic potion production line. This production line is a magic product that can record 5 potion formulas and refining techniques. Someone needs to brew the potion on its production line, and the production line will automatically record the refining techniques. Then you only need to add magic potion. You can automatically produce magic potion. Free your hands. Mass production of magic potion starts from now. Current production efficiency, 1 bottle in 3 hours. Erwin's eyes lit up. Good stuff. This is good stuff. No wonder it's called a production line. With this thing, you can build an automatic potion production factory. However, someone needs to cook it once. A person popped up directly in Erwin's mind. Snape. If Snape were allowed to brew a blessing elixir here. As long as you have the magic potion, you can get a bottle of blessing elixir in 3 hours. This thing is sold at a sky-high price. Erwin felt as if countless gold galleons were coming towards him. Erwin quickly put the potion production line into the space ring. You have to keep this thing safe, and find a way to get Snape to operate it later. But how to get Snape to help requires careful thinking. As for the other purple reward, Shunfeng Wuing, it can also be regarded as an unexpected surprise. Snape recorded this curse in the diary he gave to Erwin. This is Snape's own curse, which can also be said to be Snape's signature curse. And it is also the offensive spell that Erwin needs most right now. Without the ability to use the Unforgivable Curse, Erwin's attack methods were too simple. But it's different with Shunfeng Wuing. Erwin withdraws the reward directly. Then he looked at his remaining 1,800 spell proficiency points. Erwin directly pulled Shunfeng Wuing to level 3. Finally, Erwin will guarantee the 2 talent points he obtained. 1 point is added to the talent of Transfiguration. The Transfiguration talent has changed from 5 out of 10 to 6 out of 10. The remaining bit was added to the potions. Talent. Chapter 40. Looking at his new panel, Erwin nodded with satisfaction. Sure enough, as a cheater, only with Krypton Gold can we reach the pinnacle of life. Take a look at this luxurious panel now. Not to mention that he is in 5th grade. Even compared to some ordinary Aurors, he is not weak at all. Don't look at how little he masters magic spells now. But there are many people in the magic world who are specialized in one spell. For example, Harry Potter spent his whole life fighting with Expelliarmus. And Voldemort, who has been fighting for the rest of his life. Wait a minute, no. Why should Harry Potter compare to Voldemort? Guilty sin. What an insult to our lovely Mr. Darklord. After closing your personal panel, Erwin began to think about the feasibility of going directly to Snape to make a Felixir. After thinking for a long time, Erwin felt that this was simply impossible to achieve. First of all, He couldn't explain why Snape was asked to use his own thing that looked completely different from a cauldron to brew the potion. To put it more vividly, this potion automation industry chain seems a bit like a casserole. According to Snape's temper, if anyone dares to hold a strange-shaped object and ask him to brew a potion, Snape will teach you what cruelty is. It's scary to think about. Therefore, this first step stumped Erwin. After scratching his silver-white hair, Erwin only felt a little headache. Snape, what a difficult thing to deal with. As for cooking it myself, although my talent seems to be quite good now, but compared to Snape, I'm not even a little bit worse in design. You know, different people use different techniques to brew potions, and the effects are very different. Why is Snape called the potions master? It is because Snape is a potion that has been recognized by the market as effective and of excellent quality. And, most importantly, Erwin had no raw materials. The Forbidden Forest is not everything. It also has a lot of things that it doesn't have. Even, some of them are not sold in the market. Only potion masters have inventory in their hands, and some adventurers find these potion masters themselves to sell. The price is fair, and the reputation is excellent. Obviously, Erwin really doesn't have this credibility now. The most important thing is that Erwin himself is not sure. If there is really an adventurer who has no relatives and wanders between life and death every day, and no one will know about him even if he dies, he will find him and sell a precious material. Will one give him money? After all, Erwin is technically black. An elixir made from the eggs of the ash snake, the bulbs of sea onions, the tentacles of the motley rat, time tincture, rue powder, and eggshells of birds and snakes. This thing is a hot commodity, and the price is extremely high. If you can let Snape refine it once, then you don't have to worry about sales at all. You only need to find the materials and produce it fully automatically. The more Erwin thought about it, the more he felt that countless gold galleons were waving at him. No store sells this stuff. Even if there is one, it would be considered a treasure of the store. On the one hand, it is extremely difficult to refine, and on the other hand, it is because the materials for this thing are extremely rare. Therefore, if Cavendi's family can sell elixir products, it will definitely open up a prosperous avenue in Diagon Alley. The most powerful part of the potion production line is actually far more than that. The most terrifying thing about the potion production line is its production efficiency. One bottle every 3 hours. Regardless of the medicine, it only takes 3 hours. Take the polyjuice potion, for example. It takes a month to refine it. When it comes to the potion production line, it only takes 3 hours to produce a bottle. What a concept. Mass production of elixir is not a dream at all. Although this thing is just a purple reward, in Erwin's opinion, this thing is really not weaker than a golden reward. While thinking wildly, Erwin fell into a deep sleep. In his sleep, Erwin seemed to have arrived in a dungeon. On both sides of the dungeon corridor, 2 rows of torches were lit, extending towards the depths. Erwin couldn't control his body at this time, as if he was being pulled. Walk towards the deepest part of the dungeon. Soon, we came to the depths of the dungeon. Hiding in the shadows, looking outside. There are several cages here. Most of the cages are empty. There are only 3 cells next to each other with people in them. The men huddled in the shadows of the cell. Can't see face clearly, but it can be seen from the bloodstains on his body. These people have suffered a lot. Cell door. There were several people wrapped in black robes standing there. One of them said, "Hasn't it been extracted yet?" The other person shook his head. "No, this is just an idea in itself. No one can say whether it will be successful or not. It's too late. That child has already gone to Hogwarts. I received news that he is very outstanding, better than his parents, better than them, at least at the same age, even they are better than not him. So, they feel the crisis. The extraction must be successful. As long as it is successful, we will attack that child. I know. These people can't hold on for much longer. I need more test subjects. Go and arrest them. Okay, you don't have to worry about this. I will solve it. You just need to let me see the result. I want to see you succeed." Erwin hid in the shadows. I was confused. These people seemed to be performing some kind of conspiracy ritual. That child? Erwin was startled. You don't know how to talk about this, do you? Wizards are a very superstitious group. However, they really should be superstitious. Because although divination is bullshit, it really has some credibility. Moreover, for some wizards, their dreams will not give up anything. It is a prophecy or warning for the future. And now Erwin dreams about this. It was difficult for him not to think in this direction. So, someone is already targeting him? What is there about him that is worth keeping an eye on? Is there anything different about him? Does it have anything to do with the death of your parents? What do these people want to do? Erwin was lost in thought. The steps moved slightly. A small voice came. Who? Erwin's expression changed drastically. He turned around and ran away. I took a moment to look back. Erwin was shocked. I saw a long staff appearing in the hands of the two men in black robes. There is a crystal ball on the long staff. At this time, there were electric lights flashing above the crystal ball. The next moment, a bolt of lightning shot directly towards Erwin. Erwin couldn't escape at all. He could only watch the lightning coming towards him. Chapter 41. The next moment, Erwin woke up suddenly. He jumped up from the bed, breathing heavily. His face turned pale. The hair has become sticky with sweat. He looked around. He found himself still in the Slytherin prefect's common room. Erwin felt slightly calm. Just now, what was that? Magic? Control thunder and lightning? Young Yongji? Phew, I went astray. Erwin sat on the bed, not even realizing that the blanket on his body fell to the ground. Was that just a dream? It was so real. Erwin could even recall the faint, tingling sensation on his skin when lightning struck. Wash my face. Erwin finally recovered. At that moment just now, Erwin really felt as if he was going to die. It's terrible. Erwin walked out of the prefect's lounge. It's too early. The little wizards are still in their sweet dreams. Erwin plans to go for a walk. Slow down. After all, he had just faced death, and he needed an adaptation process. Come to the corridor. Erwin breathed in the fresh morning air. It had just rained, and the weather was a bit cold, but the air is also very fresh. Feeling the cold air flow into your lungs, Erwin felt his mood ease a lot. Just then, a voice came. Erwin, you should be sleeping at this time. Why are you here? Erwin didn't even need to turn his head to know who it was. This sinister voice was undoubtedly Snape's. Erwin was a little confused. Was Snape targeting him? Why do they always appear suddenly? Erwin turned around. Professor, good morning. Snape said, you should not be old enough to sleep. Erwin smiled and said, when you wake up, you will come out. Snape looked Erwin over. He frowned slightly. I can feel that your mood seems a bit unstable. What happened? Erwin said, Professor, if a wizard dreams a complete dream, and this dream is extremely real, what does this mean? Snape frowned and said, dream? Generally, some wizards with prophecy talent will have a premonition of reality through some dreams. However, their dreams are usually very hazy. If it is a real dream, it can only be through the use of certain dreams, special means, or being controlled and influenced. I saw something happening. However, your occlumency is good, so this shouldn't happen. Erwin nodded. Is that so? Are there any people with the gift of prophecy who have real dreams? Snape was about to deny it, but something suddenly occurred to me. His complexion changed slightly. What did you dream about? Erwin told Snape about his dream. Snape's face turned ugly. Are you sure that the person you saw used a wand that looked like a scepter with a crystal ball on it? Erwin nodded. Yes. I remember it very clearly. What's wrong, Professor? Is there anything special about this wand? Snape said, stop thinking about these things. Calm down and study at Hogwarts. Work hard to improve yourself. Erwin looked at Snape. Professor, do you know anything? For example, my parents. Are they wizards? Snape hesitated for a moment. Yes, they are very good wizards. Erwin said. Then why did they return to the Muggle world? Also, why did someone attack them, and who killed them? Snape sighed and looked at Erwin's face. And that silver-white hair. Snape really wanted to tell Erwin everything. At this moment, a voice came. Are you angry so early? Erwin frowned and turned to look. It was Dumbledore. Hearing Dumbledore's voice, Snape seemed to wake up. Dumbledore came to the two men. Snape, it's almost time. You should go get ready. It's time to ring the bell to wake up the little wizards. Snape nodded. He looked at Erwin deeply, then turned and left. Erwin's face didn't look good. Professor Dumbledore, you seem to be deliberately preventing Professor Snape from telling me the truth. Dumbledore smiled and said, Really? I don't know. I just came here and I don't know what you were talking about. For the first time, Erwin didn't smile in return. His face was still cold. Professor Dumbledore, I respect you, but you should also know that this matter is very important to me. I need to know the truth about my parents. The smile on Dumbledore's face disappeared. So what if I know? With your current strength, it is difficult to even save your life, let alone take revenge. The more you know, the more dangerous it will be for you. Your parents are both my students. I will not harm you. They, just like me, will not harm you. Erwin said, Danger? I'm in Hogwarts. Can't you protect my safety? Dumbledore shook his head. No. The safe place is not Hogwarts, but Hogwarts with me. But when I faced them, I still didn't look good enough. Erwin was shocked. You can't do it either? Dumbledore smiled and said, This world is more complicated than you think. Do you know that your parents don't want you to enter the magical world? So, they even use special methods to seal off your magic. This is why you have never appeared the reason for the magic riot. Of course, this seal is harmless, but I don't know what went wrong. Your seal has been opened. Hogwarts sent you a notice. This may be destiny. What you can do now, the answer is to become stronger and try your best to become stronger. Only in that way can you know the truth. In other words, you can continue to live. After Dumbledore finished speaking, yawned. I'm getting older. I'm sleepy again. I'm going back to catch up on my sleep. Erwin, if you can't sleep, then go to the auditorium. Believe me, as the first person to come to the auditorium, the elves will give you what an unexpected surprise. After speaking, Dumbledore turned and left. Erwin looked at Dumbledore's leaving figure. His brows furrowed. He didn't know if he should trust Dumbledore. Dumbledore seems to be an easygoing old man. But Erwin, who has read the original work, knows very well that Dumbledore is an old villain. If you don't stay far away, let's talk about Lily, Harry Potter's mother. Like Hermione, Lily's family were all muggles. Before she received the Hogwarts notice, she didn't know anything about the wizarding world. So the question is, where did the spell Lily used to protect Harry come from? No one had even heard of a spell of this level, a spell that could kill Voldemort before Lily, so it was not obvious where this spell came from. Chapter 42. You really can't blame Erwin for thinking things with evil intentions. It is true that Erwin was deeply influenced by the short video bloggers and novel authors of later generations. What Dumbledore cannot deny is that he is truly great. But equally, you can't ignore a problem. Dumbledore is really very scheming. Speaking of Lily, Erwin didn't believe that Lily could obtain this kind of spell in other ways. Some people may say that Lily may have found the spell from the Forbidden Book area. However, if we say that the person who has studied the restricted area the most in the history of Hogwarts, it should be Voldemort, right? After all, you can find out the methods of cultivating Horcruxes from the corner of the corner. You can imagine how many books in this forbidden area Voldemort has read. If there really was such a spell, Voldemort wouldn't have said in the Goblet of Fire chapter that Lily didn't know what spell she used to make Harry Potter the lucky one who survived. Therefore, even if Lily found the spell in the Forbidden Book area, it was definitely Dumbledore who was causing trouble. Here comes the most outrageous thing, and it is something Erwin has never understood. If Dumbledore only talks about his strength on paper, he can definitely defeat Voldemort. Otherwise, Voldemort would not have dared to step into Hogwarts when he was at his peak. So, to put it another way, Dumbledore can kill Voldemort. But unfortunately, Dumbledore did not take action. There is only one possibility, Dumbledore knew, even after he killed Voldemort. Nor will Voldemort be completely eliminated. In other words, Loudang knew about the Horcrux. Then Lily, Harry Potter has an explanation. Loudang is very likely to have been planning since then, including making Harry Potter one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. It's all Dumbledore's plan. My family, I shudder just thinking about it. How could Erwin trust such a person? Looking at the two lifetimes combined, Erwin never lived past 40 years. Not to mention, I lived in the safest country for 30 years in my previous life, and there were not so many intrigues. The most vicious conspiracy I have ever seen is an office fight. Are you not on the same level as Dumbledore? Can you ask a little sheep to trust a wolf? Erwin couldn't do it anyway. In comparison, Snape was gloomy every day. But Erwin was familiar with Snape's character. Erwin, who had read the original novel, knew Snape's nature very well. Although, Erwin did not know the truth he wanted from Snape today. But through just a few words, Erwin could already guess it. The relationship between his parents and Snape may not be that simple. Therefore, Erwin felt that in comparison, Snape was more trustworthy. On the way to the auditorium, Erwin was still thinking about what Dumbledore and Snape had said. It is known that his parents were once wizards. Later, for some reason, he returned to the Muggle world. Later, his parents died at the hands of an unknown wizard. Moreover, the wizard who killed his parents was very powerful, or the force behind it was terrifying. Even Dumbledore, the man known as the first white magician, needs to be wary. Unfortunately, this has never appeared in the original work. This kind of superclass problem is the most difficult to solve. For their own safety, their parents sealed their magic power. If you use certain techniques, you will not turn yourself into an obscurus, nor will your magic power ride. He was destined to be an ordinary person, but for some reason, The seal was broken. He was detected by Hogwarts. Entered Hogwarts. It seems to be clarified, but none of the key doubts have been answered. For example, who was the enemy? For example, how did the seal on his body break? After arriving at the auditorium, Erwin still couldn't figure it out, or in other words, the more he thought about it, the more confused he became. Erwin came a little early, and the auditorium was empty. Erwin sat down at the long table. Since the truth was there, the truth would eventually come to light one day. Dumbledore was right when he said something. Since the enemy is so strong and terrifying, even if Erwin knew it now, he couldn't change it at all. In this case, there is really no need to add to the worries. It's better to show off a delicious breakfast. However, Erwin waited for a while. The table was still empty. There is no repeat of the usual scene where food appears mysteriously just after sitting down. Erwin was numb. So, the surprise Dumbledore said was that he came early and didn't have anything to eat? Just when Erwin was thinking wildly. Next to me, suddenly, a figure appeared suddenly. Erwin was startled. The wand instantly appeared in his hand. What the hell? As the starlight dispersed, a smaller figure appeared. His face was full of horror. I'm sorry, noble wizard. McGee didn't mean to scare you. McGee is a bad elf. I want to punish myself. As he said that, the house elf hit the table with his big head. Erwin was stunned. In fact, he had read the original work and the novel, so he naturally knew the servility of these house elves, but he did not expect it to be so serious. The most important thing is, what kind of physical fitness does this house elf have? You didn't faint after such a collision? Erwin shouted. Okay, stop it. McGee ignored it and continued to bang on the table, still saying apologies. Erwin frowned. As the first-year hidden prefect of Slytherin and a student of Hogwarts, I order you to stop. When McGee heard this, it was as if the pause button had been pressed. Stopped quickly, standing there, shivering. He didn't dare to look up at Erwin at all. Erwin sighed. Okay, calm down, it's not your fault. I overreacted. You have already punished yourself. I saw it. That's enough then. Tell me, why did you suddenly appear? McGee said, That's it, distinguished prefect. I am the house elf of Hogwarts, responsible for breakfast. However, you came a little too early. The unified breakfast has not been prepared yet. Still needs some more time. Let me ask you what you want to eat, and I can make a special portion for you first. Erwin understood. It turns out that this is the welfare Dumbledore talks about. A house elf stove? But soon Erwin shook his head again. Even if they are house elves, they are foreign elves, and they won't cook what Erwin really wants to eat. Erwin said, Forget it. Just make some arrangements. Just take a bite. You probably won't be able to do what I want. Chapter 43. After hearing this, Maggie's face instantly showed sadness. McGee is useless. McGee is really the most useless elf. The noble wizard. You are not even willing to tell McGee what he needs. McGee should punish himself. As he said that, he was about to hit the table again. Erwin was shocked. Darling, how on earth did this wizard do it, to instill the servility of the elf to this extent? Isn't this better than the so-called PUA? Could it be that there are some wizards who are proficient in psychology? Erwin suddenly became interested in this period of history. Seeing McGee, who was about to hit the table, Erwin shouted, That's enough. McGee, I didn't ask you to punish yourself. You shouldn't have acted on your own. Erwin knew that these elves were servile at heart, so he couldn't talk to them pleasantly. Just like a certain island race that is despicable, shameless, disgusting, and wants to destroy its race and destroy its roots. They are slaves and bastards at heart, and their bloodline is inferior. Only under high pressure can they feel happy physically and mentally. What is written in the bones is meanness. After hearing this, McGee quickly stopped. He lowered his head even lower. I'm sorry, my distinguished prefect. McGee was wrong. Erwin waved his hand. Okay, since you want to know, I want to eat fried dough sticks and soy milk. Can you do it? Maggie was stunned for a moment. Then he looked up. This is also the first time McGee has faced Erwin directly since he appeared. My lord, McGee. McGee can do it? This surprised Erwin. You know how to make it? Then go ahead and make one, and I'll try it. McGee nodded. Then he snapped his fingers and disappeared. Without making Erwin wait too long, McGee placed 2 fried dough sticks and a bowl of soy milk in front of Erwin. Erwin looked at the golden fried dough sticks with a fluffy texture. Alum. It actually has alum added. Erwin was confused. Who can tell him why foreign house elves can make fried dough sticks? And the most important thing is to add soul alum. Next to the dinner plate, There was actually a pair of chopsticks. Erwin picked up the chopsticks and took a bite. Yes, yes, that's the taste. McGee looked at Erwin expectantly. Erwin asked, You actually know how to make fried dough sticks? Do all elves do it? McGee shook his head. No. McGee once served a wizarding family from Dacia. McGee learned it at that time. They are really McGee's best masters. They are polite and teach McGee a lot. Stuff. They're so gentle. But after saying that, Maggie's expression suddenly changed. McGee is a bad elf, and McGee is actually talking about the master. Seeing that Maggie was getting sick again, Erwin quickly stopped him. Stop. I don't want anyone to play music for me while I'm eating. Just let me ask you the questions. McGee nodded. Erwin asked, Since you served the wizard family in Dacia, why didn't you leave with them? McGee said, No. The master has returned to Dacia. Dacia does not allow servants like house elves. They all use snail girls and flower fairies in their homes. They are all free. According to the master's words, Dacia will not restrict any intelligent creatures. Therefore, it is illegal to bring McGee with you. This is the first time Erwin has heard about Dacia. So the snail girl actually exists? Won't it restrict any intelligent creatures? That's Dacia's style. Humane and noble Dacia. Soon Erwin devoured 2 fried dough sticks and a bowl of soy milk. Erwin wiped his mouth with satisfaction. Maggie, do you want any other Chinese vegetables? McGee said. McGee can do it. Aren't you full? McGee can also make buns. Do you want to eat? Erwin shook his head. I'm full. However, I hope to eat Chinese vegetables for my next meal. If you have time, can you help me prepare it? McGee quickly said. As long as you need it. I can do it. Erwin smiled and said, Okay, go and do your work. From now on, you will be responsible for my meals. Maggie bowed and saluted, then put away the plate and disappeared. Erwin raised the corners of his mouth. An unexpected gain. Really an unexpected gain. Unexpectedly, I actually found a chef. This is so beautiful. After eating and drinking, Erwin was not in a hurry to leave the auditorium. He had to wait until class later to take the Slytherin wizard to the classroom. With nothing to do, Erwin simply took out Professor McGonagall's notebook. Start reading carefully. But he still has a problem to deal with now. After that, I have to write a paper and give it to Professor McGonagall. When the time comes, let Professor McGonagall help him send it out. Erwin will not give up this kind of fame in vain. One after another, there were more and more little wizards in the auditorium. Slytherin students would keep their steps gentle when passing by Erwin, for fear of disturbing Erwin. Erwin defeated the hidden prefect of the 2nd grade yesterday. So strictly speaking, Erwin is now also the hidden prefect of the 1st and 2nd years of Slytherin. But Barton, the original 2nd-year hidden prefect, was more like Erwin's deputy. The little wizards naturally kept quiet out of awe in their hearts. As for some senior students, they would not provoke Erwin for nothing. This led to a very strange problem. The long Slytherin table was extremely quiet. When young wizards from other colleges come in, they can't help but be affected by this quiet atmosphere. Even if you don't know what's going on, you'll keep quiet. People are all blindly obedient. Wait until a group of professors arrive in the auditorium. They were all confused. Darling, what's going on at Hogwarts today? The auditorium is actually quieter than the classroom? Is it so outrageous? And Erwin was immersed in Professor McGonagall's notes. He was completely unaware of the movements in the outside world. He was now engrossed in Professor McGonagall's notes. I have to say that Professor McGonagall is truly a master of transfiguration. Just looking at these notes, Erwin felt that he had benefited a lot. The professors on the high platform were quite quiet at this time. After all, it's not easy to have a meal in peace and quiet. Erwin single-handedly turned the Hogwarts auditorium into a study room. Professor McGonagall noticed Erwin, who was reading a book. She also recognized that Erwin was reading her notes. The admiration in his eyes could not be concealed. This kind of student is smart and talented, but he still works hard. Professor McGonagall really likes her. This kind of student should come to Gryffindor. He should become her close disciple. Thinking of this, Professor McGonagall couldn't help but glance at Snape. He snorted. Express your dissatisfaction. Snape was confused, wasn't he? What happened? Did he provoke this elderly cat lady? Chapter 44. Snape was confused. After thinking for a long time, I still couldn't figure out how I offended this older cat lady. However, Snape didn't intend to ask. On the one hand, Snape didn't value this. On the other hand, in fact, to be honest, Snape rarely dealt with older cat girls if it was not necessary. It's true that older cat ladies are too principled. She is so principled that most people would not dare to mess with her. Not to mention a semi-autistic player like Snape. Time passes bit by bit. The young wizards from other colleges have almost left. Except for the first-year wizards in Slytherin, everyone else has also left. All the little wizards looked at each other. Seeing that it was almost time for class, I wanted to remind Erwin, but he didn't dare to speak. This group of professors also understood at this time. So the abnormality of these little wizards, as well as the silence in the auditorium today, turns out to be rooted in this. Snape looked at the time. Erwin. Erwin was pulled out of the world of the book by Snape's voice. Turn around and look. What's wrong, Professor? Snape said, pay attention to the time. It's time for you to take your first-year classmates to the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. Only then did Erwin notice that there was no one in the auditorium. Erwin said, sorry, Professor. I'm a little lost in thought. I'll go over now. Erwin was a little surprised. Why didn't these little wizards remind him? It's so embarrassing. Erwin said, okay, everyone, let's go to class. After speaking, Erwin stood up. All the Slytherin wizards quickly stood up. Although Malfoy was not angry, he also stood up. He's already called Daddy. But old Malfoy had no intention of preparing to deal with Erwin. I don't even know why, but he ordered little Malfoy not to target Erwin. So little Malfoy didn't dare to K him. The first-year students of Slytherin were divided into 2 rows, and Erwin walked through them and walked at the front. These little wizards quickly followed. On the high platform, several professors saw this scene. Somewhat surprised. A glint flashed in Dumbledore's eyes. Erwin's prestige in Slytherin is already so deep? Snape was also a little surprised. But then, I felt it was normal. The respect these Slytherin wizards have for Erwin is not just because Erwin is a hidden prefect, but it was typed by Erwin himself. Slytherin, interests come first, and strength comes first as well. Therefore, if you want to conquer these little snakes, you must have strong strength. This is also one of the reasons for the emergence of the hidden prefect rule. Erwin led a group of young wizards towards the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. Those suspended stairs have been threatened by Erwin since yesterday. I also discovered that Erwin is indeed not easy to bully. So I'm extra good today. What an amazing Hogwarts. Erwin likes things like this that know how to seek good fortune and avoid harm. You know, Erwin has always been a civilized person, and he really doesn't want to do those threatening things. How presumptuous. Erwin and a group of young wizards sat behind the classroom. Half the seats in the classroom are already occupied. Today's Defense Against the Dark Arts class is with Ravenclaw. The curriculum at Hogwarts is very interesting. He will try his best to allow the 4 colleges to take classes together as often as possible, in order to allow young wizards from different schools to become familiar with it. I have to say that from this point of view, Hogwarts' teaching aspect is really well arranged. Erwin waved his hand, and all the Slytherin wizards found a place to sit down. Arrange the little wizards of Slytherin. Erwin also planned to find a place to sit. After glancing around, Erwin found that there was only one best position left, right next to our know-it-all lady. Sitting near the middle, too far forward, it is easy for the garlic smell of Quirrell's Voldemort parasite to be smelled. If it is too far back, it will be inconvenient to score points. I have to say, Erwin is really difficult. After taking a seat, Hermione asked secretly, what were you looking at when you were in the auditorium? So entranced? Erwin said, nothing, just some knowledge of transfiguration. Very interesting. Hermione said, that's right. By the way, I heard from my senior sister that the Defense Against the Dark Arts class is the most interesting class at Hogwarts. After the senior year, you can still have the opportunity to practice. Erwin said, it is undeniable that the Defense Against the Dark Arts class is really interesting. However, I advise you not to have high expectations. The professors in the Defense Against the Dark Arts class change every year. Maybe the professor before we enrolled was really good, but what Professor Quirrell said, you will know in a moment. Hermione said, I think I heard my senior sister say that. Erwin didn't say much. How should I put it? The Defense Against the Dark Arts class at Hogwarts is really rough. Quirrell in the 1st year, Lockhart in the 2nd year, Fake Moody in the 4th year, and Umbridge in the 5th year. They are all professors who can't teach anything. I'm really worried about the students at Hogwarts. No wonder it is said that the years after Harry Potter entered school were the years when students at Hogwarts had the worst performance in Defense Against the Dark Arts. How is it possible for these professors to get good grades? Dong dong dong. Several bells rang. It also signals the start of classes at Hogwarts. The bell fell from the small door on the side of the classroom. Our teacher for this class, Professor Quirrell, came in. As Professor Quirrell walked into the classroom, a smell of garlic began to waft through the classroom. Erwin couldn't help but frown. This is quite civilized. Some young wizards have already started talking. Hermione pinched her nose, lowering his voice. Although I say the professor is wrong, I really don't understand. Why does Professor Quirrell smell so strong of garlic? Erwin spread his hands. In fact, this smell may not be that of garlic. It was the smell coming from Voldemort. Voldemort didn't know how he made himself look so bad. It's just that these smells are very similar to the smell of garlic, but they also coincide with Professor Quirrell's personality, allowing Voldemort to hide better. In fact, this Professor Quirrell is also a tragedy. In fact, compared to the others who came after him, this one is really outstanding. First, let's talk about this person's resume. Professor Quirrell has a good reputation in the magical world, and the reason why he is famous is because of his talent. It is said in the original work that Professor Quirrell is actually very good. His theoretical knowledge is particularly solid. In terms of defense against dark arts, he can be regarded as an excellent professor. This is the evaluation in the original book. Chapter 45. Moreover, Quirrell is very motivated, but it was precisely because of his ambition that harmed him. Before coming to Hogwarts, Professor Quirrell was already preparing to teach at Hogwarts. He wants to be a successful professor. So, he ventured into the dark forests of Albania. The dark forest is called the dark forest because there are a large number of dark creatures and dark wizards entrenched in it. In the dark forest, Professor Quirrell got into trouble and met several vampires and witches. I don't know what kind of torture I suffered or what. He was conquered by Voldemort and became Voldemort's puppet. After arriving at Hogwarts, he became afraid of everything and began to stutter. The original excellence has disappeared and turned into a weak and helpless person. According to Hagrid's evaluation, Professor Quirrell is a smart man. He read very well when he was in school and got excellent grades. But he is also an unlucky guy. Got into trouble, got into crisis, causes a drastic change in temperament. But overall, although Professor Quirrell has become as cowardly as he is now, but there's nothing wrong with teaching some little wizards. Although, the little wizards will laugh at him. Professor Quirrell walked up to the professor. He stammered, "Hello, everyone. Please open the second page of the book." Quirrell's stuttering tone, with a slight accent. Not surprisingly, all the little wizards present started laughing. Erwin frowned. Look at the little wizard who belongs to Slytherin. Noticing Erwin's gaze, these little wizards instantly fell silent. Not daring to laugh anymore, the little wizard from Ravenclaw gradually became quiet. Professor Quirrell cast a grateful look at Erwin. Although he was used to ridicule, this was the first time someone stood up for him. Of course, he knew that the laughter that disappeared in the classroom now was because of Erwin. The first defense against the dark arts class went very smoothly. It was also Erwin who laid the foundation well. Quirrell has a great crush on Erwin. In one class, Erwin once again scored 30 points. After class, Quirrell left in a panic. Our know-it-all girl pouted. I think it's very unfair. Erwin put away his books and said with a smile, "Oh, Miss Granger, what do you think is unfair?" Hermione said, "Obviously I know a lot of questions." I also raised my hand. But Professor Quirrell just called your name. Even you didn't raise your hand. Erwin was happy. Is it because of this? Hermione said, I always feel frustrated when I am with you. The professor's all like you. You are so good. Erwin said, Don't think so much, it's just occasional. Maybe Professor Quirrell is embarrassed to call you? You also know, he is very shy. Hermione sighed. Maybe. Erwin said, Okay, it's time for you to go to the History of Magic classroom. Our next class is herbology. There is only a 20-minute break. Aren't you going to drink some water or solve a personal problem? Hermione picked up the book on the table. I almost forgot. Then I'm leaving. After saying that, Hermione left in a hurry. Erwin looked at Hermione hurriedly leaving and shook his head. A sensitive and fragile little wizard. Erwin leaned back on his stool, waiting for the little Slytherin wizards who need to go to the toilet. He also needs to take these little wizards to the greenhouse for herbal medicine classes. Responsibilities of prefects. Soon, Slytherin's little wizards came back one after another. Erwin said, Let's go. Let's go to the greenhouse. Bring your books. Herbology requires hands-on practice. Some herbs are also dangerous, so I hope you can listen to the professor. Don't do it yourself. I understand. All the Slytherin wizards nodded quickly. Erwin glanced at Malfoy. Yes, he was talking about Malfoy. After all, Malfoy has a brain. Forget it, just don't say it. Come to the shed. There are already some little wizards waiting outside the greenhouse. Messy. No need to look at the class schedule. Just look at the messy formation of these goods. Erwin knew his partner for this class. Gryffindor. Only Gryffindor is so unruly. Always a mess. Very annoying. The teacher teaching the herbology class is Professor Pomona Sprout. Looks very kind and chubby. At the same time, the other party is also the Dean of Hufflepuff. Don't look at others who look kind. But becoming a dean is not something you can do just by being kind. This professor, who looks like the grandmother next door, has ridiculous fighting prowess. Before the decisive battle in the original book, together with Professor Flitwick and Professor McGonagall, the deans of Ravenclaw drove away Snape. Of course, the possibility of Snape's betrayal cannot be ruled out. But this one's performance was equally terrifying. The magic spell was cast completely silently. During the decisive battle, he single-handedly protected all Hufflepuff students. That fighting power is the same as that of Lubu, who has unparalleled power. The wand swished and glowed. But compared to her fighting power, her attainments in herbal medicine are even more terrifying. In the entire magic world, this person is ranked second in herbal medicine, and absolutely no one dares to be ranked first. After all, she is the one who can take care of the Whomping Willow. Professor Sprout stood in front of the greenhouse. He clapped his hands. Okay, little wizards. Before class, I have to explain something to you. What we are going to learn today is to transplant Slater's snake plant. Slater's snake plant is known as the most cunning plant. So, you need to see my movements clearly in a moment and follow my movements strictly. Don't mess around otherwise. If you are bitten by those cute little guys, don't blame me for not reminding you. All the little wizards were shocked. Bite? Are they not here for the herbal medicine class? Is it possible that I got into the magical beasts course? No, there is no magical beast course in first grade. I ignored the little wizards who were talking about it. Professor Sprout led a group of young wizards directly into the greenhouse. The 3 long tables in the greenhouse are already filled with flower pots. In the flower pot, there are Slater snake plants twisting and looking very restless. From a distance, they look like snakes hiding their heads in the soil. This is also the origin of the name snake plant. Erwin did not hide the disgust in his eyes. This thing is really ugly. Professor Sprout clapped his hands and explained the method of transplanting snake plant. Then he asked, "Who can tell me what the function of snake grass is?" Erwin raised his hand. Professor Sprout said with a smile, "Erwin, tell me." Chapter 46. Erwin said, "Snakegrass is mostly used to prepare some antidotes. Although it cannot completely eradicate the toxicity, it can delay the onset of more than 70% of the toxicity. It can give people time to wait for rescue." Professor Sprout clapped his hands. "Very good. Very well said, Mr. Erwin. Congratulations. Your erudition has earned Slytherin 5 points." Erwin bowed slightly. "Thank you for your generosity, Professor." Professor Sprout waved his hand. "Okay. Mr. Erwin has just explained the use of snake plant to everyone. Many wizards who go out on adventures will carry snake plant medicine, just to deal with some unknown toxins, you know? There are many dangers in the wild. Moreover, there are too many creatures in the magic world, and there are naturally many poisonous ones. Even the most cautious wizard cannot prepare all the antidotes. At this time, the existence of the snake herb potion is needed. According to the recorded literature, the snake herb potion has helped many wizards get the chance to be rescued. It has saved many lives. Professor Sprout taught, after explaining the snake plant. He also personally demonstrated the transplantation of snake plant. As Professor Sprout pulled the snake plant out of the soil, snake plant rhizomes are also exposed in the air. Snake grass is called snake grass because of its rhizome, which is also the location where snake grass is used. The rhizome of the snake plant has only one taproot, which is like a snake's head, and it can bite people. Although it is not fatal or dangerous, if the method is inappropriate, being bitten is very painful. Therefore, when taking out the snake plant, you need to control its rhizomes as soon as possible. Otherwise, if you take a bite, no one can forget the sour and refreshing feeling. Everything seemed to be in order. Just when Erwin thought that this class would pass easily, someone would tell Erwin a lesson. You can always trust Gryffindor's ability to cause trouble. In other words, you can always believe that there are really people with stunted brains in this world. For example, Neville is clumsy, and Ron is incompetent and disobedient. As the first wail sounded, it was Ron who made the sound. Maybe these snake plants already have experience in dealing with little wizards. Therefore, they bypassed Ron's gloved hand and bit directly on Ron's arm. Ron screamed in pain. Ron's voice startled Neville, who was being cautious at the side. Then, there was another scream. The attention of other little wizards was also attracted. In an instant, screams came one after another. Erwin frowned. It was found that the attention of some Slytherin students was also attracted. Meditate. Don't let foreign objects affect your concentration. Handle the snake plant in your hand. Only then did all the Slytherin students react. He quickly focused on the snake plant in front of him. Professor Sprout looked at the messy Gryffindor students and then at the Slytherin students. Feeling tired. The gap is really too big. The former Slytherin students actually did not make the professor worry so much. After all, they are all young wizards, and they are at the right age to get into trouble. But this Slytherin is completely different. Several professors would also chat about these students when they were in the faculty lounge. They all knew the reason why Slytherin students changed. Therefore, various professors were generous in their praise for Erwin. This also resulted in Snape, who had never set foot in the staff room. These days, as long as there are no classes every day, I stay in the staff lounge during breaks. The euphemistic name is reading a book. However, she never knew that Snape had the ability to read backwards. Several deans expressed their envy to Snape for having a student like Erwin more than once. However, it is just envy. Although Hogwarts can be transferred to another hospital, Snape will never let him go. Just kidding, Snape wasn't crazy. Pushing the best new student in Slytherin's history after his old friend to another house? Even if you have the brain of a giant monster, you can't do this kind of thing. Although, the course was full of twists and turns. But in the end, the class was completed successfully. After class, Slytherin's young wizards gathered together in small groups. Laughing at Gryffindor's embarrassment, Erwin didn't stop him either. After all, the conflict between Slytherin and Gryffindor goes all the way back to the founders. The two colleges have been fighting for a long time, and neither one is convinced by the other. Erwin actually doesn't have a good impression of Gryffindor. Therefore, naturally he will not be the bad guy and stop the little wizards of Slytherin. In the auditorium at noon, the little wizards finish their morning study. Get ready for dinner. I have to say that for the little wizards, eating in the auditorium is their favorite moment every day. As Dumbledore knocked the goblet on the table, on the long table, dishes appeared one after another. However, today, things are a little different. I saw those foods suddenly appearing. Erwin's eyes were indeed empty. The little wizards in Slytherin were in a daze. Turning to look at Erwin, students from other colleges also noticed what happened here. On top of the Gryffindor table, Ron said happily, "Look, the evil Slytherin didn't even give him food." Sure enough, Hogwarts is a just place. Harry Potter rolled his eyes. In the past few days, he suddenly felt that not everything Malfoy said was wrong. I chose this friend. My brain may be really bad. James Potter and Lily have very good qualifications. Although Harry Potter did not inherit the qualifications of the two, he was still considered average among young wizards. But because of Ron, I have gone through too much in the past 2 days. It's too hard. Going to school is really hard. You have to guard against Snape's venomous tongue, and you also have to guard against some of the tricks Ron around you make from time to time. A little carelessness could put your life in danger. He was a little confused now, whether Ron hated Slytherin or was simply jealous of Erwin. Yes, in Harry Potter's opinion, this is jealousy. Because he is actually very jealous too. Jealous of Erwin's popularity, jealous of Erwin's excellence. The professors on the stage also noticed the movement here. Snape's expression instantly turned cold. How dare you treat the elves at Hogwarts differently? Why didn't you prepare food for Erwin? Do they want to die? Although Snape was an undercover Death Eater. But don't forget, Snape only turned to Dumbledore later. At first, he was really a Death Eater. Chapter 47. Therefore, Snape was never a soft-hearted person. Snape's heart was filled with murderous intent. However, Erwin had no reaction. On the contrary, there is some expectation. Of course he knew why there was no food in front of him. Because he will soon be able to eat the Chinese vegetables that he has longed for. Sure enough, the next moment, the table changes again. Dishes appear one after another. 4 dishes and 1 soup, very standard dasha standard. A bowl of rice and a pair of chopsticks. All the little wizards were shocked. Snape's eyes widened as well. To be honest, he had been at Hogwarts for so many years, and he had never known that the house elves at Hogwarts were of this level. That's right, they are treated differently. But it turns out that they are the difference. Dumbledore looked at the food on Erwin's table. He smiled and said, "It seems our Mr. Erwin is equally welcome even among house elves." Several other professors were also smiling. Hogwarts never refuses privileges. Only if you are good enough will you have privileges. This is Hogwarts. If you have the skills, you will get everything you want. Daxia cuisine pays attention to color, flavor, and flavor. Although the little wizards around them didn't taste it. However, just from the appearance and the faintly floating aroma, it has already whetted their appetite. On top of the Gryffindor table, Ron's eyes turned red with jealousy. Evil Slytherins, their privileges have begun to affect the elves in Hogwarts. This is unfair, Harry Potter said. It's really unfair. I want this unfairness too. Harry Potter was also very envious. Although after entering the magic world, many people called him the savior and many people respected him. He also once thought that he would become famous in the magic world. Even when he was in the branch, he felt that he was different. He should be excellent. However, reality gave him a harsh slap in the face. In the 2 days since he came to Hogwarts, he had helped his college clear out all points in the College Cup. Compared with him, Erwin seems to be the savior. Harry Potter looked down at the food in front of him. To be fair, compared to the food in front of Erwin, he felt that the meals he usually thought were sumptuous were really not worth mentioning at the moment. Erwin sniffed. Very good. The taste is very good. Damn it. A house elf can actually make pot dumplings? Erwin took a piece and tasted it. Damn. The Daxia recipe has leaked out, and this hot pot dumpling is a bit authentic. The little Slytherin wizards around were already very greedy. Finally, a brave little wizard came up. Prefect Erwin, what is this? Erwin smiled and said, Great summer vegetables. Want to try it? The Slytherin student's eyes lit up. Is it really okay? Then I'm welcome. As he said that, he took a fork and took away a piece of pot meat. Erwin was shocked. No, if you ask if it's really okay, you'll already do it. Then why are you asking me? Is this how you respect your prefects? The sweet and sour taste is something these poor foreigners have never tasted. Just the right amount of thickening, sweet and sour sauce, and the sweetness of the meat itself outline a taste they have never tasted before. It makes people want to stop. The little wizard's eyes instantly narrowed. It's so delicious. Erwin now really feels that the Little Master cartoon is not a lie. It turns out that some people really cry when they eat delicious food. What a poor foreigner. The other little Slytherin wizards around also looked at the pot of meat in front of Erwin with burning eyes. His eyes were full of desire. Erwin sighed. Have to. Erwin waved. Anyone who wants to try it, come and have a try. As soon as the words fell, a group of young wizards rushed over. Erwin frowned. Manner. Pay attention to your manners. Do you think you are Gryffindors? The faces of all the Gryffindors turned dark again. Erwin is obsessed with firing map cannons, especially when it comes to these little lions. On the podium, Professor McGonagall rolled her eyes. Although Erwin's words are indeed unpleasant, think about the students in his own college. Professor McGonagall found helplessly that it seemed that what Erwin said was right. There is no harm without contrast. Of course, if someone else said this, Professor McGonagall would have to refute it. But if it was Erwin who said this, then it would be okay. Erwin, that is her beloved disciple. What? You call this double standards? Yes, it's double standards. What's wrong? You're going to have to fight an older catgirl if you don't accept it. Find out more about the statue holding a 3-meter-long sword. The dog's head is crooked for you. There are so many students in Slytherin. There are only a few pieces of meat in a plate. Soon the pot of meat in front of Erwin was swept away. Yes, these little Slytherin nobles pay attention to their manners. They didn't rob, but they didn't give in either. Malfoy even secretly came to tidy up a piece of it. His 2 gluttonous lackeys. Even more outrageous. One fork can actually pick up 2 pieces of guebao pork. Is this fork for Ninja Turtles? And without the hot pot meat, these little wizards began to move towards other cuisines in front of Erwin. Before Erwin could react, all the dishes in front of me have been carved up. The soup was all finished for him. Erwin's face turned dark. There are still many little wizards who have not tasted it. They were lining up and looking at Erwin with hopeful faces. Erwin sighed. Forget it. Erwin took out his wand and clicked twice on the long table. The next moment, a figure appeared. Hello, distinguished prefect. Your servant McGee is at your service at any time. Erwin said. McGee, go prepare some Chinese vegetables and put them on the table. You also saw that my lunch was taken away by them. I haven't eaten it yet. McGee nodded. Of course. Dear wizards, please wait a moment. Afterwards, McGee disappeared directly from the spot. The other students at the long table watched Erwin's actions. My eyes lit up and I realized it could still be like this. Is this long table a summoner? Can we order food? On the Gryffindor table, Ron was the first to prepare for an experiment. He wants to eat chicken legs, big chicken legs. Then, Ron took out his wand and clicked it on the long table. 1 second, 2 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. Nothing happened. Ron's face turned red. The wand struck harder. Come out. Why don't you come out? People from other colleges around were also watching the excitement. The rest of the Weasley family blushed too. Even the mischievous twins couldn't stand it. At this time, a voice came. Your wand is about to blind the eyes of those around you. You are not Erwin. Ron was already feeling embarrassed. When someone spoke, he stared directly at them. It was Hermione who spoke. What does it have to do with you? Nosy. You self-righteous guy. Chapter 48. Hermione also became angry when she heard this. She couldn't stand Ron. She had heard Ron speak ill of Erwin behind his back many times. So I have long disliked Ron. Then he spoke to Ron. Hermione stood up directly. Why did I say it wrong? I'm trying to impress people. I'm talking about you. It's ridiculous, and you have to compete with Erwin. You deserve it too. Ron's face turned red. He himself is embarrassed. Hermione said that again. I feel even more unable to get off stage. The little wizard said nothing serious. The knife stabbed me, and the knife went to the vital point. The truth is the sharpest knife that hurts. Ron himself is not as good as Erwin. He himself always fantasizes about being the one that attracts everyone's attention. But he knows his level. That's why I hugged Harry Potter's thigh as soon as I arrived at Hogwarts. I originally thought that by hanging out with Harry Potter, I could make a name for myself in the future. Unexpectedly, something like this happened to Erwin. Don't talk about him. Harry Potter is almost forgotten. Therefore, he had long been dissatisfied with Erwin in his heart. But he really didn't dare to say anything in front of Erwin. I can only say a few words behind my back. That's what rats are like. They only dare to whisper behind their backs and dare not go out into the sun. Ron, you need money but not money. You need ability but not ability. You need brains but not brains. When it came to bickering, none of the 10 of him could be a match for Hermione. Top academics are not so popular in all schools except before exams. Especially our know-it-all lady. You are proud at heart, so naturally, many people will dislike you. So when I went to Muggle school, I was ostracized. This mouth has long been practiced. Ron didn't wait to speak. Hermione had already said a lot. The knife pointed directly at the vital point. Ron's face turned redder and redder. If this was a cartoon style, Ron's head would be smoking at this time. That's what's called fuming. That's how it came about. Especially when I heard the discussions and ridicules from other little wizards around me. Ron's string of reason suddenly broke. Ron was furious and took out his wand. I want to teach you a lesson. Hermione was stunned for a moment. After all, I have no experience fighting against others. So I really didn't react for a while. But Erwin reacted immediately. Expelliarmus. The next moment, Ron was blown away directly. It hit the wall of the auditorium hard. Erwin's face turned cold. The other 3 Weasleys, the prefect Percy Weasley, as well as the twins Fred and George, quickly ran towards their younger brother. Percy said, Are you okay, Ron? Ron's face turned pale, and he shook his head. Fred and George were all joking. My dear brother, why did you take out the wand? Do you have any spells now? And you actually took out the wand in the auditorium. How interesting. Ron ignored his 2 brothers who were watching the fun. On the high platform, sudden changes. It also made the professors stand up. Professor Filius Flitwick, as the headmaster of Ravenclaw, now had a rare look of anger on his originally kind face. After all, he knew how good Hermione was. Helping Ravenclaw earn a lot of points these days. Although most of the scores in normal classes are earned by Ravenclaw students. But there are really not many people who can show that kind of knowledge in the 1st grade. Therefore, Flitwick is very optimistic about Hermione. And now, there are actually Gryffindor students who dare to point their wands at their classmates. Flitwick said angrily, How dare he? How dare he point his wand at his classmates? Snape also said, This matter is serious. He pointed a wand at his classmates, and he was still in the auditorium. It was just because of a quarrel. Such a bad thing has never happened in Hogwarts since the school was founded. Although, I don't think Ron Weasley can master any magic with his pig-like brain. But this matter is undoubtedly bad. Professor McGonagall also looked very ugly. Ron Weasley, how dare you do this? You actually pointed your wand at your classmate. 50 points from Gryffindor. Professor McGonagall's voice was heard. Ron's face turned pale instantly. 50 points. He hasn't earned a single point so far, and has already deducted a lot of points. The other Gryffindors had no choice but to tear him apart? Ron looked around. Sure enough, all the little wizards in Gryffindor looked extremely ugly. Everyone looked at Ron angrily. Ron couldn't help but shudder. Even Percy didn't look good. After Professor McGonagall finished dealing with Ron, looking at Erwin, "As for you, Mr. Erwin, because of your decisiveness, the school avoided a crisis. Therefore, Slytherin awards 30 points." Erwin bent slightly to express his gratitude. This was an unexpected surprise. In fact, after Erwin took action, he also thought about what kind of magic spell a pig like Ron could master at this time. He knows a hammer. Other first-year wizards may learn some spells on their own, even just for fun. But Ron, there's no way he would. Not because he has no interest, but because he is too stupid. He can't learn. After thanking Mag, Erwin turned to look in Ron's direction. He said coldly, "Prefect Percy, I suggest you take good care of your brother, otherwise, I will help you take care of it. But, if I take action, I can't guarantee that he will be intact next time. My patience is also limited. Yes, I am telling you now as the hidden prefect of Slytherin. In other words, it is a warning." Percy didn't look very good. After all, no one will look too good if they are threatened. But he knew that it was his brother who did something wrong today. Percy said, "I will." Erwin glanced at Ron disdainfully. What a waste. Then Erwin pressed his palms. "Sit down. Keep eating." Everyone in Slytherin didn't hesitate at all and sat back down directly. Those whose movements were uniform, people who didn't know better thought they were students who came out of Dacia. Soon, the elf McGee added Bactrian cuisine to the Slytherin table. Slytherin and other young wizards quickly began to taste it. As for Ron, who cares about him? Just like Erwin said, he's just a loser. Who cares whether he lives or lives? A group of Slytherin snakes tasted Bactrian delicacies for the first time, and McGee made several more. It would be a pleasure to feed these little snakes. Prefect Erwin, from now on, can we add these dishes to our dining table? It's so delicious. Erwin smiled and said, "You shouldn't ask me this." Chapter 49. Erwin tapped the table again. McGee appears. McGee bowed. "Your honorable lord." "McGee is at your service. Is there anything you want to tell me?" Erwin said, "Your Chinese vegetables. They all like to eat them. Maybe you can teach other elves, and in the future, we can all add some Chinese vegetables to our table. After all, good things need to be shared." McGee was stunned for a moment. "Of course. But do you want to give it to other colleges?" The other little wizards were stunned. "No. Now that you are talking about this kind of differential treatment, you no longer consider the thoughts of the parties concerned? Just say it so blatantly? Are they not human beings? Their lives are not their lives?" Erwin smiled and said, "Of course. We are all classmates, so of course we have delicious food to share." McGee said, "Okay, no problem. I'm happy to help you." Erwin waved his hand. "Okay, go and do your work." McGee nodded. He snapped his fingers and disappeared. The young wizards from other colleges looked at Erwin gratefully. They could all smell the smell of Chinese vegetables. They had been so greedy for a long time, but now, Erwin actually gave them a chance to taste it. They haven't realized it yet. It seems that these house elves belong to Hogwarts. It was not raised by Erwin's family, but they have begun to be grateful to Erwin, and no one feels like anything is wrong yet. This is outrageous. After McGee returned, he also arranged Chinese dishes on the tables of other colleges. All the little wizards had a hearty meal. The delicacies from Dacia conquer everyone's taste buds. The professors couldn't help but ask the house elves to make Dacia dishes and taste them. Erwin also didn't expect that his momentary greed today would lead to a result. That is, Bactrian cuisine would strangely appear on Hogwarts recipes from now on. Erwin would not have imagined how surprised these special Xia cuisines would be for some special visitors in the future. However, a good story was also left behind. Of course, this is all a story for later. After eating and drinking enough, Erwin burped twice. "I haven't eaten Chinese vegetables for a long time. I accidentally overstuffed myself. Everything about Dacia cuisine is good. The only bad thing is that it is easy to overeat. Now, I'm full." Then Erwin planned to have some after-dinner entertainment. Erwin stood up. In an instant, everyone's eyes in the auditorium were focused on Erwin. There is some expectation in everyone's eyes. Erwin raised the corners of his mouth. Of course he knew what these people were expecting. And in the entire auditorium, only one person felt completely different from them. His heart was heavy. He is Marjorie Helen, the hidden prefect of Slytherin's third year. Erwin walked along the long table to the third grade section. In front of Marjorie Helen. "Hello," Senior Helen, Cavendi, the hidden prefect of the first grade, challenges you to become a prefect. Marjorie Helen sighed inwardly. This day is still here. He knew that he was no match for Erwin. He couldn't block Erwin's disarming spell, but losing without a fight would be a shame. Marjorie stood up. I accept your challenge. The surrounding little wizards began to cheer. After all, this kind of scene is what they like to watch the most. Grodia stood up and said with a smile, Okay, just follow the old rules. Let's meet by the Black Lake. A group of Slytherin wizards rushed to Black Lake. The young wizards from other colleges are not to be outdone. On stage, Snape frowned. I'll go over and take a look. After saying that, Snape stood up directly and left the auditorium like a big bat. Professor McGonagall looked at Dumbledore. Don't we need to go there? Dumbledore had just stuffed the last piece of pot bun into his mouth. I'm missing that taste. This sweet and sour taste is much more delicious than a pile of cockroaches. He felt a little addicted. I'm thinking about asking the house elf to give me another plate. Professor McGonagall's voice was heard. Dumbledore said, No need. It's enough for Snape to go there. Of course, if you're interested, you can go and have a look. After all, Erwin is the person most likely to become the real prefect of Slytherin. Dumbledore finished. All the professors left immediately. They also like to see this kind of excitement. Everything is good about Hogwarts. It's just too bland. After the professors left, the entire auditorium was empty. Dumbledore's eyes flashed. Good opportunity. Dumbledore snapped his fingers. Call the house elf. Not long after, a steaming plate of pot-roasted pork appeared on Dumbledore's table. Dumbledore began to savor the taste. Although he may look like an elderly person, his appetite is really good. Beside the Black Lake, a group of young wizards have surrounded the shore. Fortunately, the professors are still dignified. The little wizards gave up the best viewing position. In the center of the crowd, Erwin and Marjorie stood apart. Marjorie grabbed the wand. Her palms began to sweat, and there was a nervous look on her face. On the other hand, Erwin, his face was full of satisfaction. The wand is held between the middle finger and the ring finger. Voldemort's same wand-holding pose. Very elegant and calm. Marjorie said, Erwin, I know my own level. I may not be your opponent, but I just want to see how much worse I am than you. Erwin smiled and said, Senior is too modest. After all, I am from a pure-blood family. Please give me some advice. Marjorie asked doubtfully, Do you know where I am from? Erwin said, Of course I know. The senior is also very famous. To be precise, Marjorie comes from the Burst family, a pure-blooded family of 28. It's just that his mother is from Bast. However, the Busted family was even more depleted, and the only descendant was Marjorie's mother. There are not so many rules, such as not marrying people outside the pure-blood family, because no one cares about it. It can be considered a pure-blood family that has disappeared. Therefore, Marjorie's father is not considered a bride-in-law, so naturally Marjorie does not take the surname Burst. Marjorie nodded. Salute to Erwin. Erwin returned the gesture. Then the two walked with their backs facing each other. After standing, Grodia gave the order to start. Subsequently, Erwin took the lead. Expelliarmus. Marjorie was not to be outdone. A disarming spell was also issued. Compared to Button, Marjorie is certainly stronger. The speed and intensity of casting spells are both superior. 2 magic spells exploded in mid-air. But obviously Erwin's curse is even better. The location where the question exploded was more towards Marjorie. Erwin reacted extremely quickly and missed a single hit. The next attack had already been launched again. The same disarming spell. Marjorie's eyes widened. He couldn't react. Armor protection. However, Marjorie's armor spell was not skilled enough. She couldn't stop Erwin's disarming spell either. The next moment, Marjorie was knocked straight away and fell to the ground. Chapter 50. Erwin breathed out. How should I put it? It's a bit level, but not much. However, it is much better than the ordinary little wizard designation. After all, this is Slytherin's hidden prefect. Erwin bowed slightly. I agree. I won. Marjorie refused the help of her friends. He stood up by himself. There was a bit of disappointment on his face, but he wasn't too disappointed. After all, he had already expected the result. So it was no surprise that he lost. Marjorie bowed. I lost. Congratulations, Prefect Erwin. Erwin said, Senior, you're welcome. I will still need your help in many places in the future. I just hope you don't hold grudges and can just shirk the blame in the future. Erwin, who was polite and neither arrogant nor arrogant, easily endears himself to many people. For example, those around watching the battle. Although Erwin has just arrived at Hogwarts, but in just 2 days, a lot of things have been done. Plus, Erwin is usually nice to everyone. Oh, except Gryffindor. It's hard not to make other little wizards have a good impression of Erwin. Glodia came to Erwin. Congratulations, Junior. You have won again. I think the day when you walk in front of me is not far away. There is still some time, so go and take a rest. There are classes in the afternoon. Erwin said, Thank you, Prefect Glodia, but I think it's quite early today. I plan to challenge another hidden prefect. Erwin turned to look at the Slytherin crowd. His eyes fell on a female little wizard, Charlotte Teresa, the only female hidden prefect in Slytherin, and the only one who is not from the 28 pureblood tribes. Charlotte smiled. Get out of the crowd. I thought I had to wait until tomorrow. Unexpectedly, my junior is ready to challenge me today. Erwin smiled and said, You can take advantage of the fact that you have eaten enough today. If you are not my senior's opponent, you will be able to withstand the beating when you are beaten. Charlotte covered her mouth and said with a smile, Junior is so humble, just like those humble Dacia people. I don't have the ability to beat Junior. The disarming spell in my junior's hand is really terrifying. Erwin said, Senior, you're welcome. The smile on Charlotte's face gradually faded. But, after all, I am also the hidden prefect of the 4th year. I cannot lose without a fight. Therefore, I, Charlotte Teresa, the hidden prefect of the 4th year of Slytherin, accept your challenge. Erwin also had a rare solemn expression on his face. The 7 hidden prefects of Slytherin, except for Erwin himself. Of the 6 hidden prefects, there were only 2 who really made Erwin feel threatened. Glodia, I won't talk about this, the hidden prefect of 7th grade. His age is right there. Moreover, he is the legitimate son of the Selwyn family and has received a good education since he was a child. The Selwyn family is a very special family. I heard that this family made its fortune by relying on some dark side. If it really counts, it's like the kind of killer family in the movie, although it was later cleared up. But the family's inheritance method has remained. Glodia is a person who does not appear in the original work. As the only legitimate son of the Selwyn family, he has been trained since childhood. There is no way these young boys in school can compare. It is really capable of fighting. Of course, Erwin is now confident that he can fight with him. After all, Erwin is cheating. It is an eternal truth that natives can never cheat. Except for Glodia. Another person that Erwin couldn't see through was Charlotte Teresa. This female prefect is not from a pureblood family. Even in Slytherin, people are easygoing. Be polite to everyone. However, it happened to be this kind of person when Erwin saw her for the first time. There was actually an indescribable sense of crisis in my heart. This is an instinct that Erwin has honed in blood and tears for so many years. Just like a wild beast, when it sees an enemy that can threaten itself, it will have this sense of crisis. And Charlotte gave Erwin this feeling. This made Erwin always curious about this female prefect. A wizard who is not from a pureblood family. It stands to reason that she can only learn the knowledge taught in school. However, Charlotte was able to secure the position of prefect in Slytherin where pureblood families were rampant. This itself is unreasonable. Born in a pureblood family, even though he had no education before entering school. But due to the influence of their ears and eyes, and the conscious guidance of their family members, you have to admit that they are better than ordinary little wizards. How can hard work be compared to the inheritance of so many generations? So, for this only female hidden prefect, Erwin has always been serious about it. Today, I finally have the opportunity to feel the strength of this female prefect. The two saluted, then distanced themselves. After standing still, Glodia waved. Start. Glodia just finished speaking. The next moment, Charlotte's voice sounded. Confinement quickly. Split into pieces. 2 rapid sounds came in succession. The next moment, 2 magic spells flew towards Erwin. Erwin's pupil shrank slightly. What a fast casting speed. Erwin waved his wand. Armor for protection. Erwin only had time to use the iron armor curse. I felt like my body was being imprisoned the next moment. The spell directly hit Erwin's already solid purple armor shadow. A soft sound. Erwin staggered back 2 steps. Erwin didn't dare waste time. The moment the confinement disappears, the figure hid towards the side. Expelliarmus. Sure enough, Erwin just left the place. A ray of red light shot toward him, falling directly to the ground. The students watching were stunned. Is this a real battle between wizards? This is the speed of casting spells. Is this mouth a rented one? Talking so fast? Several professors who were watching were also a little surprised at this time. Snape frowned. His eyes fell on Charlotte. Is it hiding her clumsiness? Or is it because no one has allowed her to use her full strength? This strength is no weaker than that of ordinary Aurors. Grodya on the side also looked at him with some suspicion. Looking at Charlotte, my heart was full of surprise. He never knew that Charlotte had such strength. Erwin waved his wand. Expelliarmus. The purple light flashed past and flew toward Charlotte. Armor protection. Charlotte reacted very quickly. The iron armor curse is directly useful, but she didn't take it hard and ran quickly to the side. Erwin's disarming spell hit Charlotte on the shoulder. Charlotte's movement stopped. He glanced at Erwin in surprise.
Thanks for watching. You can find the next videos in the playlist linked in the info card, directly on my channel, or right here on the screen. And as always, if you have any feedback, feel free to share it in the comments too.